Coordinating Board special meeting of September 28th to order. Yeah, you would think with fewer members that it would be easier to organize ourselves, but that's obviously not the case. We're going to have a rather long morning, and I thought maybe I would start off with a slight bit of humor this morning. I flew in from Harlingen.
Come on, Shepard. We don't need to tell this story.
I talked to Mr. Vice Chairman. You were totally out of order.
I'm going to be out of order.
I called Neil and asked him if he could give me a ride from the airport out here, and he graciously said, of course, he could. I met Laurie Bricker in Houston. I said, Laurie, don't worry about it. We have a ride. So I get a hold of Neil when I hit the ground, and I said, Neil, where are you? He said, look, just meet me at Avis. I'm picking up my car at Avis. And I said, well, that's fine. So Laurie and I walk out of the airport and walk over to Avis, and it is the car, the number one car in the number one spot. And that car absolutely is burnt orange. Yep. I thought Neil was going to die.
All the days that I offer a ride to my two colleagues on the coordinating board, you have to walk up and be in it.
And thanks to,
there's a picture of it.
Thanks to Laurie, she had her camera phone, and she's already taken a picture. And for those of y'all that are interested, it will be on the coordinating board website in about 15 minutes.
Thanks.
I couldn't resist that.
I appreciate it.
I just couldn't.
Nice to be part of levity.
What I would like to do first is kind of outline our morning for us. Obviously, most of you all that are in the audience, I know we're here for the issue as it relates to our discussion about the U of H Ranch campus. We have some public officials with us this morning, of which I see Laura Weber. Laura, when you find out who all is here, if you'll please bring those to me, because we first and foremost are going to allow public officials to speak. There are a couple of community representatives here. We're going to go ahead and do that at the beginning of the meeting, and then we will move on into our agenda. And I want to change it just a little bit. I'm going to ask on Chairman Lorraine Perryman to give her report first and have the presentation from the institutions. And then we will move to Mr. Adams' committee, strategic planning, to talk about the real estate aspect of this. And then we'll come back and deal with a motion and discussion at that point. A couple of other items that I want to mention since we have convened last. We have a new general counsel for both the board and the commissioner, Mr. Bill France. Bill, welcome. I hope you've had an opportunity to meet all the board members this morning. And then also we have with us Bill Beckmauer, who was here at our last special meeting. Bill, welcome again. As I think you all know, when we got into the discussion on this issue, one of the very first things we did was hire Bill to give us advice and counsel on the entire project, and in particular on the OCR issues. Yes, sir.
Before you begin, one of our colleagues is not here this morning, and I talked to him yesterday. Brett Heldenfeld, who is our newest member, had surgery last week, and came home on Monday, and just wanted to convey to his colleagues on the coordinating board all the notes, cards, calls, everything. Being a Francis member, he said, you had told me, and that this was a special family. And he says, now I have experienced that, and he wanted to pass on to each of you his appreciation and his regrets that he could not be here, but he assured me that he would be here for the October board meeting. So.
Right. Okay. Well, we're certainly glad to hear that positive report, Neil. Thank you very much. As many of you know, this has been a long process. I can't think of anything that I've done in the last 4 or 5 months. I started to say 4 or 5 years, and it seems like that. 4 or 5 months other than deal with this issue. the U of H issue really started back, Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, since I was out of the country when it started. I believe it was first brought before your committee in late May? June the 8th. For discussion purposes, it was not on the agenda. And from that point, it literally became the number one priority of not only the board but also the staff. I don't know how many hours, Raymond, that you all have spent on this collectively, but I know it has been thousands, literally, of hours. And we'll hear, I don't know where David Gardner is. David hiding around here somewhere this morning. Under David's leadership and Susan Brown, and of course your leadership, we appreciate you getting into this and bringing forward a recommendation for us to deal with today. As I had mentioned a little bit earlier, the board's leadership had made a decision very early on in the process to retain outside counsel. We hired Bill Bettnauer, who I introduced just a moment ago, to advise the commissioner and the board on our legal responsibilities, reviewing, analyzing, and ultimately acting on the U of H's request for a branch campus in Northwest Harris County. Bettnauer is known for his extensive experience in handling civil rights matters relating to education in Texas. In addition, I would like to state, although it does not appear that the priority plan applies in this situation, our staff's recommendation is consistent with that plan, as well as the state's underlying constitutional duty regarding desegregation. We forwarded the commissioner's recommendation to the OCR yesterday, and certainly will apprise the OCR of any action taken by the board today. So we have been in contact with them, and I want to make sure that not only all the other board members know that, but the institutions do as well. What we would like to do at this point in time, before I call the legislators up, is I'd like to call on the commissioner for a few of his remarks.
Thank you very much, Chairman Shepard. I simply wanted to underscore a point that you made. The fundamental concern, the overriding concern of the staff in putting together the recommendation that you now have before you was to make a recommendation on the basis of the best educational interests, not only of this particular part of the state, this part of Northwest Houston, but to make a recommendation that represented what we thought was in the best interest, higher educational interests of the entire state. We looked at a number of factors. We looked at demographic projections, not only in this part of Houston, but for the entire state, to get a sense of whether there might be comparable or competing issues that would come before the board in the foreseeable future. We concluded from the data that this is one of the fastest growing areas of the state. It has relatively high college going rates. It has it's a fairly affluent community, which would once again suggest that there would be a large demand for higher education programs, particularly at the upper division and graduate levels. We took into consideration the different points of view of institutions, of political leaders, of community leaders. I have received hundreds of emails about this project, and I read every one. I wasn't able to respond to many of them because there were so many, but I read them, and we talked about the arguments that were made and the materials that we received. We had at least 3 meetings with representatives from the different institutions that are concerned about this issue. We had 2 meetings here at the coordinating board. We had 1 meeting in Houston with the idea of gathering information. We've been in touch with political leaders, have listened to their points of view, certainly taken them with great seriousness. And we have been looking at this issue up until the very last minute. As recently as the end of last week, I conferred with officials at the different campuses with members of the legislature and reported to the chair and the vice chair of the board what those points of view are. I feel very strongly that the recommendations that we have brought to you this morning represent a very thoughtful consideration of the issues from very different points of view. And our ultimate conclusion is that we believe that there is a way to make a recommendation to the board that is considerate of the different institutions' legitimate concerns about this project, something that's responsive to the legitimate concerns of members of the legislature and the general public. So we look forward to providing any information you need as you deliberate this morning.
Thank you, Commissioner. One of the things that I want to make clear, too, is there were a number of requests during this process from public members to meet either with the Commissioner or myself. And as I explained to the people that I talked to on the phone, it wasn't that we did not want to meet with you. It's just under the time constraints that we were dealing with, we felt like that the staff's time and my time, for that matter, could be better spent working on it. And I think everybody that I talked to understood where we were in that, and I just wanted to make that clear. What I would like to do this morning to start out, and Laura, if I've missed anybody, please let me know. But we have with us this morning State Representative Peggy Hamrick, State Representative Lois Colcourse, State Representative Deborah Riddle, and Corbin Van Arsdale. And I see we have 4 seats up here, so I'd like to ask for you all to come up at this time, if you will, please.
Mr. Chairman, Dan Patrick.
All those up in there. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What I will do, only because I'm looking at you in this order, Representative Riddle, if you would like to go first, we'd be happy to hear you.
That would be fine. However, State Representative Peggy Hamrick is our most senior member, so I'd like to defer to our most senior member.
She was older, too.
I got chastised for that last time, so I moved over that and beyond that on purpose. But I would, if you would like to defer to Representative Hamrick, I'd be more than happy to.
But I will add, I do have more grandchildren than she has. No, I will defer to her first, okay, out of respect for her seniority, and then I think Lois Colcourse is Representative Colcourse.
I'll go last as a non-Harris County representative.
Okay, that's
I'll
fine.
yield to my larger county.
Your larger county. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate that very much.
Okay, now that we have that settled, good morning, Representative Hamrick.
Good morning. It's nice to be here, and thank you for starting the meeting off this morning with a little bit of humor. And as I head up to the Capitol later, I expect to see Matt Brown in his maroon car, or I'll be certainly disappointed that we aren't having this aura of cooperation between our universities, and certainly in this state. Mr. Chairman, as I told you earlier, I had not intended to speak today because you know how I feel about this very important issue, and it so happens that the recommended North Harris County campus for University of Houston and other universities certainly also is in my legislative district, and is in an area that I have lived in for 33 years, have raised my family there, and am very, very familiar with the opportunities. We have wonderful community college system, as I have said earlier, in that area. We need to close those gaps, and this is an absolutely wonderful opportunity for that to happen with these upper level and graduate courses being offered, to allow the folks in that area the opportunity to finish their education and to add on to their education. And that is just so important. As you know, this is a fast-growing area, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. Within just a few mile radius of the area for the proposed campus, I would dare to say there are probably at least 500,000 within 5 miles of the area. That's why shopping centers locate there, et cetera, because it is such a congested, busy area. But we need these educational opportunities for these students. I have lived there a long time. I have seen a lot of progress, but we have not had as many folks complete that 4 years as we need to. And as you know, as we get into the 21st century, we need more and more education, not less and less. And so this is very, very important. One of my duties this morning, I was asked to introduce some of the folks that came from the community and let you know who they are. And as I introduce them, if they'll stand, because I think it's important that you know we have very diverse group of people that represent a lot of businesses and cultural opportunities, et cetera, in that area that are very, very interested in education and that have come to support us in this. First of all, Ms. Victoria Miller, who is the field representative for Congressman Michael McCall's office, Congressman for Congressional District 10. Patricia Harless, who is a candidate for state representative in District 126, which happens to be my current legislative district. Patricia is also a longtime resident of the community and small business owner in the community and has served on the Community College District Foundation for a number of years. Sort of our leader of our group, and we've had to pray over this a lot, so it's sort of significant that as our community leader, we have Dr. Glenn Wilkerson, who is the pastor of Cypress Creek Community Christian Church. And Glenn has had a long-time interest in education, and having represented the area for a number of years, I've actually carried educational bills for Glenn, and so he has unending interest. And his community center that he also hosts 135 nonprofit organizations that pass through that community, so he represents a lot of different folks. Tom Davis, who is Executive Director of the Cypress Creek Cultural District and is a member of the 1960 Improvement Corporation. Mary Davis, Cypress Creek Cultural District Board member and also a member of the Pearl Fincher Museum of Fine Art. Barbara Thomason, who is President of the Houston Northwest Chamber of Commerce. Thelma Scott, who's a small business owner in the area and also a member of the Chamber, and Brenda Pennington, who is with Pennington Commercial Real Estate, and she represents the seller of the Hewlett-Packard property for the proposed campus. And from Tomball, which is just our neighbor a little to the north, is Mr. Sean Cox, who represents the city of Tomball, and representing the Tomball Chamber of Commerce is Ms. Colleen Gilligan-Gilbert. And Barbara Tague is here representing the Tomball Downtown Merchants Association, and Marie Hepperman with Global and Company Real Estate in Tomball. So we have folks from the Northwest Houston area as well as Tomball here today, and hopefully they all stood up and let you know who they are. So I am going to end mine, and I just want you to know that I appreciate all these extra meetings. I know you do have another life, and so when you have to come to all these meetings, that you've given us the opportunity to have our say, I appreciate that. I appreciate the report that your staff did. I think it's very level-handed. I think it gives the opportunity for a lot of good secondary institutions of higher learning to partner, to do something that's rather unique. So I do appreciate that. I think the staff did a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Representative Hamrick. Representative Riddle, I know Corbin would obviously defer to you.
Thank you. Well, I want to begin by thanking each of you on the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board and all of the time that you have committed to this. It certainly shows your level of concern and commitment to the people of Texas, and we really greatly appreciate that. I'm going to dive into what I would call the real common sense way of that I look at this. And the last time we met, I shared with you my personal story that my first 2 years of going to college, I rode a bus. I didn't have a car. I couldn't afford a car. And if I could not have had access to public transportation, I would not have been able to have gone to college, or at least not at that point in time. And so I tend to look at this through the eyes of my constituents and through the eyes of understanding, because in many ways I was in the shoes where a lot of those young people are today. But there's some items that we can agree on. First thing I want to do is touch on the items that I think that everybody in this room agrees on. I'm going to touch on some items that I believe obviously are issues of concern and disagreement, and then I'm going to wrap it up very quickly with, I think, some good solutions. We can all agree on the fact that education is the key to a prosperous future for our nation. We all agree on that. Education is key to a prosperous community, my community, your community, all of our communities. Higher education is critical. Education is also key to reducing crime. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Criminal Jurisprudence Committee, and crime is out of control. I've got several bills that I'm introducing in the upcoming legislative session regarding that. But I also believe that in addition to dealing with it in that way, education is a preemptive strike, if you will, regarding crime. So we all agree on those issues. But where is the problem? It is thought by Prairie View and with all due respect to Houston that the campus, the U of H campus, the satellite campus in our area would or could detract students from those two institutions of higher learning. And that is a fear. That's a concern. There's three motivating factors that really motivate people. Anyone in marketing would tell you this, and that is fear of loss, hope for gain, and love and affection. Fear of loss is way high up there. Hope for gain is kind of lower, and love and affection is barely on the radar screen. And I think that fear of loss is operating, with all due respect here, in this issue. But the reality is that the students, and I'm going to name out some subdivisions. You may or may not be familiar with them. Some in Representative Hamrick's area, some in mine. Greenwood, Forest, Ponderosa, Champions, all through our district. A good many of those kids, if not all those kids, are going to go where they want to go. They're going to go to Harvard. They're going to go to Yale. They're going to go to Texas A&M. They're going to go to UT. They're going to go to Rice. They're going to go basically wherever they want to go. They don't have the limitations. It's the kids that have the limitations that I'm here to speak for today, because I was one of those kids. And those kids, if they don't have a car, you flat cannot drive 30 miles up the road to A&M or further away to Sam if you don't have transportation. So they're kind of locked in. Whereas where the proposed location would be, there is a metro site, so they would be able to have public transportation to get there. Bottom line is this. Those kids are not going to Prairie View now. They're not going to go to Prairie View. They're not going to go to Sam. They're just not going to go. So bottom line, you can't lose what you don't already have. The reality is, I believe that if the University of Houston is allowed to proceed, that all ships will rise with the rising tide. Is that the way it goes, Corbin? I think that's the way it goes. That all ships will rise You see, this isn't a pie that when you cut a slice out, then the pie is smaller. That's the wrong way to look at it. What we're giving here, what we're doing here is adding opportunities for growth, not to take away, but to add. You can't lose what you don't already have, and I sincerely believe that providing the opportunities, especially for the folks that would not be able to go to Prairie View or to SAM, that it's going to enhance all the universities, it's going to enhance our community, it's going to enhance our state. And on that, I'm going to end. I thank you again for all of the time and dedication that you've given to this issue.
Thank you very much, Representative Van Arsdale. Thank you. Earlier this week, I got a call from my office got a call from the board asking how many slots, how many of the staff I'd be bringing, and I told them I'd be bringing everybody. And that includes from my district office with my staff here today. And the reason for that is very important to the people that I represent. As I shared with y'all last time, I don't want to just sort of reshare that, but it's such a very personal nerve with a lot of people. It surprised me actually how personal this is to people in my area that they've attended some school, but not as much school as they'd like to for reasons of location, transportation, fuel costs, family obligations, that they could if there was a campus nearby. I also think there's another member of our community here today that ought to be acknowledged, and that is Dan Patrick, who I believe is here. I think I saw him, and who I realize we're in campaign season, but I believe he will, probably be the next state senator. So I want y'all to know that he's here. I'd like to thank first of all Lori. Lori's been great in terms of meeting with people, just listening to people, being very proactive about this. Be sure everybody's opinions are heard, and I want to thank all the people, members of the board, for y'all's service to the state of Texas and taking time out of your lives to what is a very important mission, frankly, for the whole country, which is our higher ed system. I also like to thank Raymond for listening to me and talking to me and sharing with me and being real honest and straightforward with me, and I really appreciate how you handled all the different forces and interests that you've had to manage. And also I think Lois, because Lois, after we had this last hearing, I emailed Lois off my BlackBerry, and I appreciate Lois's friendship, but she emailed me back, and she was in the middle of a stream, and somewhere in Montana or somewhere, talking to me on her cell phone on her vacation. And for a long time, and I really appreciate Lois listening, and we had a good long conversation in the middle of the stream somewhere in the upper part of the United States. But since this last meeting we had, this report on higher education came out, and I think I'm assuming that y'all have read it, will read it. But the things it's saying in there are things we kind of intuitively know. But we got to get past this notion of institutional turf. We got to get past this notion of, campus A versus campus B, University A versus University B. The rest of the world, especially in Eastern Europe and in Asia, they're just working harder than we are. And if you're in the business world, you know this. You don't need to be told it. I think some people that are in the business world are a little slow to realize what's going on. And when you see statements like, for example, that were made in this report, like, Texas does not perform well in college completion rates. Internationally, Texas not only ranks very low in the number of certificates and degrees produced, but is outpaced by low-performing nations such as the Czech Republic and Hungary. If you've ever been to Eastern Europe, you know what an indictment statement that is. Okay, we have a lot of people in the area, in my area, that they've been to some college, they have some college, but they don't have as much as they wanted to have. and they are passionate about it. It is a personal nerve. And I saw this statement in here in this report that said that we're still the world leader in the proportion of Americans from age 35 to 65 in terms of higher ed with college degrees. We're still first. But when you look at age 25 to 35, we're seventh. And so I'm a little bit concerned when you see the Asian countries, you see the Eastern European countries. Yeah, we're still on top in terms of our whole population, but what about 10 years from now? What about 20 years from now? What about 30 years from now? And I don't think we can just look at the numbers as they exist today. I mean, as you said, this is one of the fastest growing regions in the state. I mean, if you look at North Dallas, Northeast, I mean, it's a couple of the fastest growing regions in the country. And when you start trying to say we're going to plop down an extra million people here, I don't think the institutions that are there can handle it, even if they had lots of appropriations, frankly. The number of people that are going to be coming in, we're not even meeting the needs as we need them now. To me, this U of H deal just seems like a total way to help address some of these things that we're falling behind on. It's not good enough for us just to run our race and improve our times. We have to improve our times compared to how the other runners are running the race. And so that's what we always have to keep in mind. So that's really all I have to say. I've got hundreds of emails on this too, and it's been surprising, frankly. I have one of the most sensitive constituencies in the state, based on other conversations I've had with legislators, when it comes to taxes. I have one of the most conservative House districts in the state, and I was surprised at how just unanimous the support was for this. So I want to thank the staff and the board for all your time and consideration on these matters.
Thank you, Representative Van Arsdale. Next, I'd like to call on Representative Colcourse. Good morning.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good to see you face to face.
I had the same conversation.
Everybody talks about that one Montana trip. Jimmy and I went for 6 days to Montana. That's all out of the many days in the year.
We were jealous.
I know. I did. It was the Yellowstone River I was talking to you about. And while I was talking to you, Jimmy caught an 18-inch brown. But that's okay. I'm going to pass this out because I'm going to reference a few things. I find myself in an interesting position today. I sit with my colleagues from the same party, good friends, kind of neighbors to the east, and people that I line up with usually every day. I don't ever want Peggy against me, and we usually agree on things. And I'm going to today talk about some things that I'm not going to agree with you on, and let me say, I'm going to make 3 points today, Mr. Chairman, so you'll be very pleased. I won't go down tons of rabbit trails. I'll try to stay focused because I have a lot to say on this issue. Indicative of 3 up here and me, I sit before you as state representative for a rural area, Austin County, Washington County, Grimes, and Walker. Walker happens to be where Sam Houston State University is. Just barely, my neighbor is Prairie View A&M. I deal a lot with Prairie View. They're my neighbor. I have a great interest in higher education, as is what I serve in Article 3 of the Appropriations Bill and dealing with higher education. So I'm going to make some points knowing that I'm greatly outnumbered on this. My first point that I want to talk about is the history of the Higher Education Coordinating Board. And I want to direct some of the statements of what Corbin and Debbie said about kind of a new phase that we need to get over the turf battles. Well, if that's the way it needs to be for the future, then we need to change the purpose of the Higher Education Coordinating Board. My staff spent several hours this week doing some research, and if you go back to 1965 when the Higher Education Coordinating Board was formed, there's some interesting issues of how Governor Conley really made this one of his focus points, and it was controversial at best. But there were things like limit geographic areas in which schools may conduct extension programs, stop colleges and universities from offering courses which duplicate those taught by others. The board would also have control over building programs at universities and senior colleges and universities. And the reason is because everyone, and I think the leaders then could see, everyone was just running out and trying to put up their campus and stake their claim, and there was duplication duplicative effort on courses and campuses. And there's a reason why you don't want to duplicate a lot, and it's called taxpayer dollars. I try to say to every child who's attending a community college or one of our 35 general academics, you are on scholarship from the state of Texas, from the people and the taxpayers of Texas. And they always look at me and go, what are you talking about? Or parents go, what are you talking about? My tuition's too high. I go, just think how high it would be if the taxpayers of Texas did not invest in the 35 general academics. So I ask you today, as you make your consideration, and I have a feeling I know how this vote may go, but maybe not. Maybe I'm a collegiate golfer, and y'all know that, well, you might not know, Bob Shepard knows I'm a competitor. And, you know, when I was behind in a golf match, and I'd go into the 17th and 18th hole, and I'd know that I was 4 strokes behind, I still have the optimism of I could hole out, par 4, I could hole out from the fairway. There's a deuce, okay? I can make up 2 strokes there. And I can eagle the par 5, the last hole, the 18th hole. I can eagle them. So today I have to hole out from the fairway twice, and I don't know that will happen. It could. But I want to make some points to all of you as you move forward. So the first would be why the Higher Education Coordinating Board even exists. It exists because you're trying not to duplicate courses. And Bob, you've heard me say this, and Raymond, you've heard me say this. I'm in the convenience store business, and I'm starting to think that higher education is also in the convenience store business. Because everywhere there's a corner, let's put up a campus. If you start to look at all of the outreach that we do in the time of internet, when internet's, delivering more courses online, we're building more campuses. Yes, we're growing. Debbie, I so appreciate your thoughts of access. Let's talk about someone from Brenham, Texas. The closest campus they can get to is about 40 miles. A lot of those kids don't have cars either. So I'm sympathetic. I'm a defender of the middle class, and I work really hard for that. But as we move forward, I want y'all to think about what the role of the Higher Education Coordinating Board is. And look back at that article from 1965. The next item that I want to bring up is the manner in which this proposal came about. Maybe I'm just in the dark. Maybe I just am not on top of things as chairman of Article 3 of the Appropriations Committee. But to me, and I know someone said June the 8th, okay? That's pretty quick for anyone in government to move. I know that there have been rumors, I guess they're only rumors, that September 1 was a deadline. September 1 was a deadline. Well, we're well past September 1, so I can't believe that there was a deadline. And I can't believe that there wasn't a thought process that could have been better in how this was conducted, not to alienate Sam Houston State or Prairie View, and to look at the spirit of what the MITSE in the University Center is. I'm going to quote a couple of things from the Memorandum of Understanding on the MITSE in the University Center. 1, the common ground for all these entities has been a commitment to provide unduplicated bachelor's and master's degree programs. The mission, this is my favorite part, the mission of the University Center is to serve the residents of the North Harris Montgomery Community College District, its service area, and the Greater Houston, North Harris County, and Montgomery County region by providing convenient access to quality unduplicated bachelor's degree programs complementary to the AAAS and AAS degree programs provided by the North Harris Montgomery Community College District. Access to quality unduplicated master's degree programs which will equip the residents to advocate in their careers and which will meet the workforce needs of the employers located in the district and adjacent areas, and access to quality professional development courses which meet the needs for professional certifications. How many times did I hear unduplicated in there? It was a spirit of cooperation in that. So part of my real problem has been the manner in which this has all come about. And I don't really blame the Higher Education Coordinating Board, but I do warn you that today as you vote, you are rewarding that kind of behavior. And rather than this being the abnorm where we jump into a new college campus that may infringe upon as admitted by your own report, Dr. Paredes, this will become more the norm than the abnorm. You are rewarding bad behavior. You are advocating cannibalism of the higher education system. Beyond the feel-good slogans of closing the gaps and broadening access, this is truly what I believe could be a sad day for the Higher Education Coordinating Board. Why? Because you are rewarding bad behavior. And then thirdly, why am I so, wave the flag in defending Sam Houston State University and Prairie View? I know for a fact that Sam Houston State University has done what we've asked them to do. They've gone into the University Center and they've done a great job, used a lot of tenured faculty. I hate that this is a turf battle. I hate that. I hate that fact. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But I think that there was some wisdom by those leaders in 1965 that said, we don't need to all be running around offering the same courses within a certain area. I am certainly David today, trying to slay Goliath. I am one. Sam Houston, I'm all they've got. Prairie View has a state representative, and they have a very active black caucus that you'll hear from. The University of Houston, 25 state representatives, plus other representatives where they have other satellite campuses. I don't sit here today and believe that I'm going to win one for the Gipper. But I will challenge each of you that sit in those seats. I'm elected by the people. I'm empowered by the people to represent them. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm representing the little guys, the Sam Houston State Universities of the world, who are not chasing a Tier 1 system. They're not chasing and spending money to try to become a research university. They're out there doing exactly what that thing says, go. And they're doing it in a quiet and meaningful manner. And yet today I believe that your actions could have a huge impact on their future. I've asked Bob for some concessions. I will tell y'all what will happen. The University of Houston today will get their campus, and they'll get all the enrollment dollars, and they'll get a shiny new campus. Prairie View will stand before you, and they will eloquently speak to why they are against this. But in the end, if you've ever read The Art of War, their power of position, we're coming up on an OCR settlement year. And they'll get a big check from the state of Texas. And as I have said, and each of you that I have talked to have admitted, who's the loser here as far as someone that's quietly doing their work? Sam Houston State University. And I'm just one state representative out of 150 going up against a lot of great friends. And I understand, Corbin, you want something good for your area. So do I. So as you make your decisions today, think about that. Don't reward bad behavior. Make concessions. And do what's right for Texas and the Texans. They're the ones paying the bills these days. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your remarks, Representative Colcourt. I would make one comment, though, as chairman of this board, I have no idea how this board's going to vote.
I know, I do. I kind of do. But you know what? Chancellor Matthews tells me I'm crazy, okay? And no one hates losing. My request would be that we put the brakes on it and go about this in a different manner. I suspect I'm going to lose, and I got to tell y'all something. I hate losing anything. But I will continue to work for the betterment of higher education, and I will never abdicate my responsibility of representing my 4 counties. And with that, I will move forward with the Higher Education Coordinating Board, not as my enemy, but as someone that as a group that I challenge. What exactly were you chartered to do? Go back and read your history and figure it out, because we'll certainly have some say in the next session about what that is. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next, I would, first of all, I'd like to recognize one of our colleagues in the audience, the Vice Chairman of the A&M Board of Regents, Bill Jones. Bill, welcome this morning. Be happy to hear from you now, or if you want to speak when A&M speaks.
I'd like to, would it be okay to address the board at this moment and have Prairie View addressed at the same time? The only reason I ask that is I have a plane to catch to go to Dallas a little later on, early afternoon. But I don't want to mess up your schedule.
Bill, I've only got one other thing to do real quick, and I was going to call up Dan Patrick and Patricia Harkless. They're both nominees that wanted to speak. If you'll give me 10 minutes, is that okay? Will that work with your schedule?
Perfect.
Okay. I know Dan. I believe Dan's here. Dan.
I'm happy to wait.
Okay. Well, I think what Bill had requested is to come up with Prairie View, Dan, and that might take a little bit longer if I understood Bill correctly.
I'll be brief.
Okay. And Patricia, well.
And I don't need to speak because Peggy does a much better job than I do.
Okay. Well, we're happy to have you here this morning. Welcome. Dan, good morning. Good morning to have you here again.
It's great to be here. I will be brief. I have just a few remarks to make, but I do want to address something that was just said. There's no bad behavior here. This is some of the best behavior on behalf of the taxpayers and the parents and the students of Texas I've ever seen. I'm so impressed with the job you have all done. You have really carefully considered this, and you've listened to the opposition. Representative Colker says she's in the convenience store business. Well, she knows when a location becomes available, if you don't buy it, it might be gone tomorrow. I just bought a radio station in Dallas. I've been looking for 6 years. The opportunity came up. The window was very brief. I had to act. And that's what happened here. This is a tremendous opportunity. An investment of about 25 cents on the dollar for the taxpayers of Texas. This is a grand slam. First base is education. Second base, the students. Third base, the parents. And home plate are the taxpayers. We're saving the taxpayers over $100 million if we tried to build this facility from ground up. This is quite the opposite of bad behavior. This is finally government acting in a very smart manner on behalf of everyone. And I do think it's a tough battle, quite frankly. And I have great respect for the two universities who are opposing this. And I understand. They're protecting their turf. But every university should be looking out for the future of our state. And as a representative, I'm not here supporting this because, as someone said to me a little earlier, said, well, every senator wants a university in his district. That has nothing to do with it. If I didn't think this was a great plan for taxpayers and students and parents, I would have told the University of Houston, I'm sorry, I can't support it. I'm a hawk on saving taxpayers' money. I've never seen a proposal before taxpayers that has been so overwhelmingly received by everyone. I've not received one phone call on our radio station. I've not received one negative. I've not received one negative email in our campaign. I mean, this is embraced by the community college system, the people who are here from Tomball, and people here from across the district. And someone earlier said that, I think in your commission study, that, this is an affluent area. Well, if you go 10 minutes down the road, it's not an affluent area. It's not a affluent area. This will provide access to all those students. I want to give you a couple of facts and figures, and that's what I intended to do. For the first time in the history of the state of Texas, we have more students in our schools today from lower-income families. 56% of the students entering elementary, middle, and high school today in the state of Texas are from low-income families. 56%. At the same time, since deregulation, our tuition has gone up 39%. The average cost for a semester in the state of Texas over our state universities was $1,934 in 2003. Last year it was $2,664. That's a 39% increase. But what has also happened? Our enrollment has increased during that same period of time from 381,000 students to 393,000 students. So what does that tell you? Costs are going up. It's more expensive, but there's this determination by parents to get their children an education, and there's a determination by the students to get an education. So costs are going up and enrollment is going up. We must provide access for all families of all income levels. And yes, that area does have middle and upper income families, but as you know, aid to families to help with the cost of education starts declining after a family makes $40,000 a year. Well, let me tell you folks, if you make $60,000 a year, you're not rich. And education is expensive. So we have an opportunity here to place a great university in the heart of one of the fastest growing areas in the United States of America. And we have a chance to do it and save the taxpayers $100 million. And we have a chance to give children an opportunity for an education who can't afford room and board. When I testified here about a month ago, I'm one of those students. I went to UMBC, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I graduated in 1972. It was a branch of the University of Maryland because my parents could not afford room and board. And I worked my way through college. And so I worked and I went to school and I drove back and forth. And you're going to find a lot of students will do that at this university. And let me tell you the last thing. And that is that if you talk to the community college system, and I met with the board, do you know the fastest areas of growth for students? It's single moms in their late 20s. Well, they end up, there's no place to finish their 4-year degree because they can't leave their families. So if you check the records of the community college system, it's one of the fastest growth areas. Single moms. Or married folks who just want to go back and increase their education. This gives them a great chance. This is not just about 18-year-olds coming out of high school. This is about the entire community. It would be a travesty to vote no on this. And I hope that at the end of this day, you'll realize this is, if you vote yes, it is not a no vote to Prairie View and A&M. It's not a no vote to Sam Houston, and it's not even a yes vote for the University of Houston. It's a yes vote for the future of Texas, for the parents of Texas, for the students of Texas, and for the taxpayers. So I respectfully ask you to vote yes. This will be one of the greatest decisions this board will ever make for the future of Texas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. We appreciate you being here this morning. What I'd like to do then is go ahead and ask our colleague Bill Jones, the Vice Chairman of the Board of Regents, A&M.
Is there if time is permitting, I only have to leave by noon, so if you all want to hear U of H first, I wasn't sure exactly the order of the agenda, how you wanted to proceed. That would be fine.
Bill, what we're going to do, I have two other speakers from the public that are going to speak very briefly, and then we were immediately going to go to Lorraine Perryman's committee to talk about the academic portion of this, at which time we were going to call the universities up, which all should take place in the next 10 minutes. I'll be happy to accommodate your schedule in that regard.
Okay, so just for purposes of my planning, you're going to hear the universities in the next 10 minutes or so?
Yes.
Okay, and then I can wait.
We'll be happy to accommodate you, Bill, and do that first.
No, I'd just soon hear what U of H has to say before I spoke anyway, so I'll wait.
That's the lawyer in you. I understand. We understand that. Okay.
Some habits are hard to break.
Oh, we have to listen to Mr. Adams all the time. We totally understand.
I'm the lawyers already.
I'm going to get an opportunity to have a microphone in a minute. But that's okay.
We're frightened.
We do have two members of the public who have been introduced before that have been community activists that I'd like to call on. First is Glenn Wilkerson of Cypress Creek Christian Church. Glenn, if you'll step forward, and then Ray Zobel. Ray, are you here this morning with the Cypress Creek United Civic Association? We're happy to hear you all this morning. And we know neither one of you are politicians, so if your remarks are rather brief, that would be okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. With all due respect to Representative Cokhorst, what we're really about today, and I think should rightfully be about, isn't the protection of institutions. We're really here to close the gaps for underserved kids. The president of Prairie View A&M, which is an absolutely wonderful institution, told the board at last month's meeting that if the University of Houston came to our community with a campus, it would preclude Prairie View's plans for our community 5 to 10 years hence. And our kids simply cannot wait that long. I know that there's a perception of ours being an affluent community, and there is some affluence, but in truth of the matter, it's not an uppity, white-bread community. The 5 school districts that are adjacent to the proposed U of H campus have a student population of over 200,000 kids. Of those 200,000 kids, only 38% of them are white, 38% of them are Hispanic, 20% of them are African American. Of that student population, 43% are at risk in terms of their dropping out of school. 44% are economically disadvantaged, which means that they could lay claim to free lunches. These kids are not going to obtain a 4-year college degree unless it is offered locally and can be accessed by public transportation. And these kids have got to be served. Prairie View has owned the playing field for the past 15 to 20 years, and it's a wonderful school. But they've responded to this opportunity and this need as best it could by offering a small graduate center, which is a wonderful institution, but it's tiny. It served 813 kids over the 2 semesters of last year. It offers no undergraduate degree courses, so it's of no value to the kids in our community who desperately need access to a 4-year degree. As far as bad behavior is concerned, I don't see our community could be accused of bad behavior. We're not in favor of any particular institution. We just want these kids to be served. And we initiated the conversation with U of H around 9 months ago, asked U of H if you have the resources and the will to come serve these kids, please do so. And all that has transpired since has resulted in our being in this room today. We think this is an absolutely marvelous opportunity for us to close the gaps with some kids who are underserved. And in the words of the tool guy, let's get her done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Good morning. I'm Ray Zobel, and I represent the Cypress Creek United Civic Associations. We have approximately 100 homeowner associations in the general area, mostly to the west of the area that would be served by the possibility of this new campus. And yes, as has been said, we have many affluent homeowner associations, but we also have a lot that aren't very affluent. Sizes range from about 250 home subdivisions to 1,500. Many of these are self-managed, which means that it's just volunteers from the community that are serve on the board. They don't have a manager to take care of what's going on. They have to do everything by themselves. So I think this is kind of the grassroots of the community. And overwhelmingly, the people are looking forward to having a campus close by that would be convenient. It's been mentioned that a lot of people do plan. We have families that just don't stop to think about college. It's automatically assumed that kids are going to go on from high school to college, but others aren't. And looking at the growth in the Cy-Fair Community College, it's been up a few years ago and is already up to around 3,500, the latest figures that I saw. And Tomball College, which has a lot of people. But those are only 2 years or a certification, not a full degree, just the certification, 2 years. So we feel that there definitely is a requirement for additional capacity in our area. And I just say that I believe you should look for what's best for the community and the state, not just maintaining the status quo.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you being here this morning. What I'd like to do next is move on to item number 3, matters relating to the Committee on Academic Excellence and Research. I'm calling as chairman is Lorraine Perryman.
ma'am.
We welcome everyone here today. We're glad to have the opportunity to hear from everyone, and many of us on the board that are not in the geographic regions affected really have not been as bombarded as others have been. I know Laurie has been actively involved in this throughout, as well as some of our other board members, but some of us from the hinterland do not have our minds made up. I just want to make that clear to everyone that's here. We have two items on my committee's agenda today. The first is committee chair's report, which I will dispense with in the interest of time today. Our next agenda item is 3B, consideration of a recommendation to the board on a request from the University of Houston for an off-campus higher education unit. The coordinating board has a series of criteria by which it evaluates proposals of off-campus higher education units, such as the one proposed today. And we will hear that report today from our staff, which a lot of work has gone into, and we'll discuss the particulars of that in a moment. But first, we would like to hear from representatives of the institutions involved. We've received requests from University of Houston, Prairie View A&M, and Sam Houston to address the board today, and we'll hear brief testimony from each of those institutions at this point. Each institution will be limited to 4 minutes, and I think we do have a timekeeper that's present today so that we can move this along, because I know some of you have planes to catch and would like to see the resolution of this quickly. Board members, I ask that you hold any questions or comments until the University of Houston and coordinating board staff presentations are completed, which are at the end of the agenda, and also those that we hear from Sam Houston and Prairie View. So we'll try to move this along as quickly as possible after we hear all of the presentations. Then I will turn this back over to the chair, and we will open it up to questions, and we may ask some of you to come back up to the podium to answer some of those questions, in addition to the discussion that the board will have. We'll begin our institutional testimony today with the University of Houston, and if y'all could start moving forward for your presentation at this point. Presenting our chairman of the University of Houston board, Dr. Leroy Hermes, Chancellor Jay Gouge, and I probably mispronounced that, Hermes. See, it's like the scarf. I just went straight for the Hermes. Only the women in the room got that joke. Okay, we'll move along. Chancellor Jay Gouge and my old friend Don Foss, Senior Vice Chancellor of the University of Houston System and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost of the University of Houston. Welcome, gentlemen. We're so glad to have you with us today, and we look forward to your testimony. Please begin.
Go ahead. I'm Leroy Hermes, Chairman of the Board of Regents for the University of Houston. I would like to turn the mic over to our Chancellor, Dr. Jay Gouge.
Madam Chair, Mr. Hermes, delighted to be with you today. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you also to the board, to the staff, the commissioner for an awful lot of hours, an awful lot of work that has gone on in the last few months. I think the one thing that we ought to all be proud of is that there is no apathy relative to higher education in Texas. And I have to say that there are people obviously that oppose this proposal, and I think they are sincere, they've been very honest, and they've been very forthright in their disagreement with our proposal, and we understand that. And so regardless of the decision today, we will leave here as good friends and good colleagues with our folks in higher education. Appreciate certainly the community folks that have taken the time to be here. And I just want to share with you that about 3 years ago, we undertook within our system a strategic planning exercise to try to look at the University of Houston system, the 56,000 students that we have, and to try to look at how do we mirror what we're trying to do with the closing the gaps approach that is taken by the coordinating board. We identified about 3 years ago several locations within Houston that we felt were underserved, and the Northwest area was clearly one of those areas. I won't give you the demographics, but it's about 1.4 million people, and roughly 30,000 students are located in community colleges in that area. There are two facts that I would share with you, and then I'll turn the program over to our provost. Houston as a metropolitan area was recently evaluated based on the 60 other large metropolitan areas in the United States. And Houston is 59th among the 60th metro areas in terms of the educational opportunities available, seats in school, if you will, for a four-year degree. So we knew that there was demand there. We knew that there was demand in the Northwest region. And as has been said, the student that serves our main campus and our system today tends to be a working student. 82% of our students on the central campus work 30 hours a week or more. They tend to be place-bound. They're very non-traditional students. And we viewed this as a great opportunity to help serve students and families within that particular region. And so we came forward, and I would have to be the first to admit it's on a quick timetable, and it was on a quick timetable in part because of the real estate opportunity that was there. So we apologize certainly to the board and to our colleagues because we would have preferred to have a much longer period of time to try to plan and to try to work on this. And so we're excited about it. If you were to make a decision to support this, we would plan to open classes in January of 2007. Provost Foss.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I also thank you for your time and attention to this issue. If you have not done so, I commend you to go to the KUHF FM website and download into your iPod some programs by a faculty member there named John Leanhart, who has a 3-minute show every day called The Engines of Our Ingenuity, and it's a remarkable show and discusses topics from music to engineering. And I mention that because I think the kind of institutions that we are and are the engines, and this plan is an ingenious plan, somewhat different. We recognize that to try and serve a large number of students who presently are underserved, and we want to do that. We believe this will be an engine of opportunity, an engine of mobility for these students in terms of their life consequences, and an engine of personal growth for them. This campus will be one that will be a quality campus in terms of its academic programs by virtue of the plan that we have forwarded, and we will be happy to answer any questions. I'm very proud to be associated with a school that emerged out of a blue-collar tradition and that also wants to be a research and cutting-edge university. I think Texas has room for those kinds of institutions, and we propose to bring a component of that to this part of the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Prairie View A&M. President George Wright, and you want to introduce anybody else that you'd like to introduce from your university?
I believe we have Dr. Thomas here as well from Prairie View, but she will not be speaking.
Okay, great. Once you get 4 minutes.
Might I, before you sit down with that, might I have the introduction not taking away time from George? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. And I will not be long. Let me see if I can perhaps help everyone on the coordinating board relax just a bit. I am not here to ask you to vote no. I gathered a big sigh of relief on the part of everybody. That's all I do. But don't relax quite that much. I am going to leave you with a few questions, and they're serious questions. I'm a big believer in opportunistic advantages. I do it in my own personal practice. You all do it in your own personal businesses. When there's an opportunity available, you take advantage of it if you can. And obviously, the University of Houston has been given an opportunity that does not come along very often. And generally, when an opportunity presents itself that's good for you, you take it. And I think that is generally a good rule. The only thing I would ask you to do is to consider the effect. Specifically, what effect on a unique institution. Prairie View is a unique institution. I don't know how many of you know it, but Prairie View was actually established before Texas A&M in the 1800s. Prairie View is a historical black university. That designation carries with it some baggage, some good, some not so good. My own history with Prairie View started when my oldest brother attended Prairie View in the late 50s and the early 60s. And I actually attended a class with him as a 4-year-old during summer school as he was finishing up. And I got to visit a college campus and stay in a dorm. And it was pretty convincing to me that that was the place to go and the thing to do when you graduated from high school, because they actually had showers, and we didn't have a shower at our house. So I thought that was pretty cool. When I walked around that campus as a 4-year-old, every kid I saw and every professor I saw was black. 18 years later, I attended Texas A&M University because I could. And Prairie View was attended by my brother's daughter 6 years later. She graduated in 1987. And most of the students there were black. It looked very much like it looked when I went as a 4-year-old in 1964. The Office of Civil Rights has investigated this issue and has given Texas some very specific instructions on what it should be doing with Prairie View and other institutions that fall into that category of historically black institutions. And one of the things that they are essentially telling Texas is make these institutions historically black, not presently black, in that those institutions should be fostered such that they educate all children of all Texans, and not just black children of black Texans. And Prairie View has started down that road of accomplishing the OCR mandates. One of the things that the OCR suggested was that we needed to strengthen existing academic programs and authorize new, high-value, high-demand programs that are not unnecessarily duplicative of programs offered by proximate historically white institutions at each of the historically black institutions, including Prairie View A&M. They also went further in saying that the high-value, high-demand programs developed by Texas were designed to assist the state's historically black institutions in attracting non-minority students and to further Texas's efforts to eliminate any remaining vestiges of its prior dual system of higher education. This coordinating board approved a mission statement of Prairie View, which identifies the rapidly growing residential and commercial area known as the Northwest Houston Corridor as one of the target service areas to accomplish this mission. And to continue to attract non-minority students. I am not here to suggest that we not approve this campus. What I'm here to lead with you is what are we doing to ensure that Prairie View accomplishes its mission? Because either we need to establish programs and help Prairie View accomplish this mission, or we need to change Prairie View's mission. I'm not here to suggest which way is the right way to go. Maybe we should fight the Office of Civil Rights and suggest that Prairie View shouldn't have that as their mission. Maybe that is the answer. I don't know. I will leave that to this board to decide. But if Prairie View is to become more like A&M, and if Prairie View is to become more like U of H, and if Prairie View is to become more like Texas Tech and other state institutions that are not historically black, it's going to need help. This board is committed to help Prairie View, and we have done so, and we can talk about that at some other time if you'd like. Some of the things that we've done on the infrastructure to make sure that the infrastructure is there to accomplish these things and to accomplish this mission. And there was a lot of work to be done. I'll be the first to admit. We have the right man to do that job. He is committed. He is focused. He is not to be deterred, and believe me, he has some enemies within. But I'm just leaving with you that as you consider what you want to do for U of H, don't forget Prairie View. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to President of Prairie View, President George Wright.
Good morning. I'll have to start off by saying when I contacted the commissioner several days ago and asked to speak, and he replied that would be fine, it was not mentioned that I would be limited to 4 minutes. And so that is a shock to me, and I'll try to adjust to that accordingly. Like everyone else, I have spent a great deal of time over the last 4 months going over the entire University of Houston proposal. For me, there are any number of concerns that still remain, but in the interest of time, I'm going to go on I want to make, I guess, my recommendations. My major recommendation is for you to simply table this at this time. When we met at the Woodlands 2 weeks ago, I brought along 3 dozen, no exaggeration, questions and concerns that we had. Those questions and concerns have not yet been answered. That's recommendation number 1. But assuming that you approve the University of Houston recommendation, I would urge you to increase the amount of time where Prairie View would have the right of first refusal related to courses and programs to a minimum of 5 years. That I think that would help Prairie View greatly. I would also argue that in the list of programs that Prairie View is to offer, we must retain one that was already there, and that would be business, that Prairie View must have that. I must say it disappointed me to see that among the courses that we would have exclusive right of was the PhD program in juvenile justice. It should have had an asterisk to say Prairie View is the only school in the country that has a PhD in that program. And I don't think U of H is interested in that, but that disappoints me in that sense that was not mentioned in that manner. I would also say that if we go forward with the proposal, that attention be given to the role of the Office of Civil Rights. I understand that the attorney mentioned today that is being taken under review. Well, I think that's a very important aspect of what you need to do. Regent Jones just mentioned something that I would urge you to do as part of your going forward with the University of Houston proposal, and that is that you would go on record, that you would make a very strong statement saying that Prairie View's OCRA funding must be continued, that is essential, the $12.5 million that Prairie View receives each year. I had wanted to talk at length about something that has been addressed by virtually all of the speakers, and that is competition. That I come from a background where competition is essential. Again, I'm very proud of the universities that I've been affiliated with. University of Texas, Duke University, University of Kentucky, they are for competition. The rub is it must be on a level playing field. We all know the history of Prairie View. We all know the history of higher education in Texas. I will close by giving a very quick history lesson. June 1950, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, Sweat versus Painter, the most significant, highly celebrated desegregation case of all time. That case mentioned Prairie View, it mentioned the creation of TSU, it mentioned the University of Texas Law School at that time. That case said a lot of things about the unfairness in education, but it spoke clearly to this whole issue of a level playing field. It applauded that the state of Texas had spent a considerable amount of money in creating a law school at TSU. But it asked the question, does that, doing so, level the playing field of over 50 years and so forth? I end with that same question. Can anyone truthfully say that allowing the University of Houston and Prairie View and A&M to be in the same environment to compete fairly is a level playing field in higher education? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sam Houston State University's testimony will be provided by President Jim Gatner and Mitch Newsom, Dean of Graduate Studies and Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. if y'all would come to the table.
Madam Chairman, I'll just speak myself. If we have any questions,
and we also have Texas State University System Chancellor Charles Matthews and Vice Chancellor Ken Craycraft in the audience. We welcome both of you today for being here. All right, proceed.
Just for the record, I want to show that my friendship with the University of Houston, I wore a bright red tie. I too want to thank the board and the staff, the commissioner, for your hard work on this. I know this has been a tough issue for you, and we do appreciate the way you've approached it. I'm here, Sam Houston State is here, because we're convinced that this new campus will harm this university. We've worked hard to embrace, and we've eagerly embraced the closing of gaps issues that were put before us several years ago in terms of growth, in terms of the SAT scores, in terms of the retention rates. And as our growth has increased, as our retention rates have increased, as the incoming scores for our freshmen have increased, the proportion of our minority students have increased as well. So we are convinced that we will be harmed by this. 37.75% of the students at Sam Houston State come from a radius of 25 miles from the proposed University of Houston Tomball campus. 81% of our students at the University Center at the Woodlands come from a radius of 25 miles from the proposed University of Houston Tomball campus. Our position is this is a very expensive proposition, approximately $38 million to buy the property. We've been told about $20 million in the first 3 years of startup, but that does not include the losses that will be suffered by Prairie View A&M, Sam Houston State, and to a lesser degree, Texas Southern and Stephen F. Austin. The state of Texas will lose that money. It's just not the losses that will be incurred at the University of Houston Tomball campus. If the money is spent, there'll be two possible outcomes. Number one, there'll be enough new students in higher education to justify that expenditure. Or secondly, there'll be a diffusion of programs and will weaken everyone. Now, there's no doubt that the three university programs are in a tight geographical area, and I guess it's really up to you to decide if it's too tight a geographical area. But it is a tight geographical area, and the same programs will be offered by all three institutions in that tight geographical area. So our position is very similar to that of Prairie View. We believe that given the state's limited resources, the decision as to whether any new campus, where it is to be located, should be based on a needs assessment, on some type of a template. And that needs assessment, we just haven't had time to do a good thorough needs assessment. We provided you with some maps that provided some detail on geographical distribution of people in the Houston area, and I invite you to review those maps. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have about those. But my question to you is the proposed site, given the information that you were given in those maps, is that the best site in the Houston area to meet the closing the gaps issue? I also want to mention the MITSE, the Multi-Institutional Teaching Center in the Woodlands. We, the University of Houston Downtown, Prairie View, Texas Southern, and A&M, 10 years ago entered into this highly praised concept. All had the opportunity to embrace it. We embraced it. We took the chance. We bought into that 10 years ago. And as a result of that, now we are offering 70% plus of the credit hours in that MITSE, in that multi-institutional teaching station. If the participants are allowed to duplicate programs within that area, what is the value of those agreements? It's an open invitation for others across the state to do similarly. I'm going to repeat that for emphasis. It's an open invitation for others across the state to do similarly. So our position is, number one, this will harm Sam Houston State University and the MITSE. It is being done hurriedly without an adequate needs assessment. Others across the state, actually others within the Houston area, might be better served by another location. It will duplicate courses taught in a tight geographical area, and it will undermine agreements that were entered into 10 years ago to establish a MITSE, and it will invite others across the state to do similarly. I want to say finally that no matter how this turns out, we're certainly committed to seeing to the best interest of students in Texas, and we'll do so.
Thank you to all three of the institutions for speaking. You have a copy of the revised recommendation from the staff, which is prefaced by a goldenrod page, which is the current recommendation from the staff at each of your places. If you do not locate that, we have more that are available to the board members. This recommendation is different from the one emailed to us on the 20th and posted on our website on September 22nd. It's important to note the reasons for these changes. When the proposal was received on June 8th, staff began assessing the proposal based on the criteria you will hear described in just a moment by Susan Brown. Those criteria are used to help answer the questions of whether the branch campus proposed by the University of Houston will help the state achieve the goals described in closing the gap, and specifically if approving this branch campus proposal is a sound educational decision. Staff conducted an extensive review, and I will just review some of that to remind everyone all of the steps that have taken place to reach the recommendation that they bring to us today. They have taken into consideration population growth and projections of population growth and demand for educational services in the Northwest Houston area, as well as similar projections for those other areas of Texas, including the Metroplex, Bayer County, South Texas, in assessing competing demand for state resources in other high-growth areas as well. They reviewed institutional mission statements, institutional strategic plans, academic programs proposed for the site, and current programs offered by all potentially affected universities in the area, space deficits and usage rates of area institutions, and state commitments to the priority plan to strengthen education at Prairie View A&M University and Texas Southern University, current off-campus operations by area institutions, articulation and consortium agreements among institutions, and other collaborative efforts were also examined and taken into consideration. Throughout the summer, the staff met numerous times with all of the parties involved. The recommendation that was posted on our website September 22nd resulted from that data review and from ongoing discussion of issues with all the interested parties. That extensive assessment and communication has continued, and the result of such concentrated effort is the recommendation that you see before you this morning. Having given you that background, we'll now hear the staff report and recommendation on it. Susan, if you would come forward and make your 7-minute presentation. Thank you very much.
I've also asked Dan Weaver in case you had any questions about the financing, because he did the analysis of the financing.
And Carol, you will continue to be our timekeeper.
Susan, before you, we might, and I'm going to steal some of the commissioner's thunder, but Dan Weaver, who we've all worked with, as I understand it, yesterday or the day before, just accepted a full-time position with the coordinating board. Dan, welcome. We're happy to have you aboard. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome, Dan.
Okay, go ahead. As Ms. Perryman said earlier, we do have board criteria that have been posted for multiple years on our website on the creation of a branch campus. And so that's basically what I'm going to step through on how we analyze this project in relation to those criteria. First is the need based on the projected student enrollment. Second is the duplication, access for new student, faculty resources. We also wanted to include quality. It needs to be a high-quality program, and student support and the need for the various programs. In looking at need, many of you have seen this map before. I've got a few different numbers in here. These are projected growth from 2006 to 2011, and that's per year growth. As you can see, the areas in red have the highest growth per year projected, and they also have the largest base of growth, the largest current population. If you look at the population in specific counties that we've been talking about, Harris County currently has 3.4 million or in 2000 had 3.4 million. And they are expected to have a 1.9% per year growth in that population. Bell County is where the University System Center for Central Texas is, has a 1.2% per year growth, but they only have a base of 240,000 population in 2000. Bexar County, 1.4 million base and a population of 1.3. As you can see, Williamson County actually is the closest as far as percent of actual growth projected for the 5-year period that we're talking about, but they only have a base of 250,000 students, the population, not the 3.4 million that Harris County has. We're narrowing this down a little bit more, and we're looking at some of the 10-mile area radius around different areas. Proposed campus has a 15.5% growth. The Woodlands, which is again in Harris County and is a very high growth area, has a 19% expected growth. As contrast, you look at the UNT Dallas has a 6.5% expected growth around the UNT Dallas campus, and the A&M San Antonio campus has a 2.4% expected growth. We looked at college going rates, and that's an important factor because we're looking at how many of the students are soon to be going into college around the state, and these are on a county level basis. Harris County at 48%, Bell at 46%. Bexar and Collin County and Williamson County have higher. They're in the low 50s. Next slide. I broke down the Harris County and Dallas County, and I pulled these ISDs because they're the ones closest to the proposed campus for Harris County. And it's Cy-Fair has 61%, Tomball 66, and Klein 64. You compare that to in the Dallas area, you look at Richardson at 54, Garland at 50, or Richardson at 55, Garland at 54, and Mesquite at 50, and Williamson County at 53. I do have that for all the ISDs in Harris County and in Dallas County. If anybody has questions about specific ISDs. So we looked at need. We looked at the population increase in the area, the 10-mile radius. We looked at the educational attainment. They have 30% of the population in that area, adult population in the area, that has some college or an associate degree. They don't have the full 4-year bachelor's degree. Local community colleges in the area are the fastest growing in the area. They had 73%. They grew 73% at North Harris Montgomery Community College in the last 5 years. That is a phenomenal amount of growth. Harris County is expected to be the fastest growing large county in the state. That is a high growth area. There will be a lot of students there. We then looked at the space need. How much space is going to be needed around the state? And this is based on the space model that we use for funding space at the general academic institutions. Statewide, there's a deficit of over 5 million square feet. In the Metroplex, it's not quite a million. Gulf Coast is 1.3 million space deficit. And that is on the books now. That is not the projection. That is what kind of space they have now, not including adding additional students. South Texas is barely over 1 million. So this is an area where they already need space. Out of that, duplication. Some of these programs are duplicated. What we have done in the recommendation is we have looked at trying to pare down and have OCR, the effect on OCR. There will be effect on Prairie View and St. Houston, and we have tried to take that into account. Because of the growth in the area, we expect that there will be a lot of new students. They are looking at outreach programs for the community colleges in the STEM cells, and they have targeted, U of H has a very good track record of targeting underrepresented minority students.
3 minutes.
Okay, next. Look at faculty resources. U of H plans on having 40 full-time faculty by fall of 2007 and 90 by 2012. The average teaching load, when we looked at it on the number of courses that they plan and the FTE that they are expecting, would give an average teaching load of 4 courses per semester and 1 during the summer. The deans and the chairs would have hiring authority over this campus from the main campus. And we would expect that the quality of the faculty would remain the same as it is on the main campus. Provisions for high quality. We looked at the distribution of programs across the campus. They're not all coming from one area. They are spread out, so it would be less of a burden on any one area. The central administration would continue to handle the facilities and the administration and over the student support. We looked at the transfer rate that University of Houston has compared to some of the others for how well their transfer students graduate. The University of Houston has a 44%. Sam Houston does very well in this area. Of the students that transfer to them, they have 56% that graduate in 4 years. And Prairie View has 44% graduation rate. So they're all fairly high rates. Adequacy of student support. This is one of the things that the University of Houston proposal actually handles very well. They want to have admissions, financial aid, academic advising, all the services that are needed to ensure that students are retained and graduate, and they will have those at this site. The need for programs, the University of Houston has not done a formal needs assessment. We have looked at it, and the program offerings that they are proposing are based on the students that they have on their main campus that come from that area and what types of programs they're enrolled in. Part of their request includes that they would like for this to pull some of the students off their main campus. They have a huge deficit on their main campus, and they're trying to relieve some of that to make room for other students. And so that's how they pick some of the programs. Now I'm going to let Dan talk about the financial analysis.
Just real briefly, and all this is in the packet. The revenue and cost actually are the original, or I guess the UH proposal numbers. So they are in their proposal are expecting a loss in 2007 of about $1 million. But expect to be operating with a positive operating margin in 2009. And their proposal for funding would come from HEAP, tuition and fees, and lease income. The net present value are actually numbers that I went through and took their proposal and kind of peeled away the funding aspects and really got it back down to just a project basis to look at the positive impact for U of H as well as the negative impacts for the other schools that have already spoken today. And with that analysis, the net present value with modifications that are described in the packet is about $130 million. And I also ran an analysis where the enrollments were delayed and reduced based on the proposal, and that net present value came out to about $95 million.
Now I'm going to go over what the recommendations for the staff are. And that is that the University of Houston not request any special state appropriations. The second one is that Prairie View be given the right of first refusal on the listed programs, which includes those programs that were listed in the priority plan, along with the nursing program. Other programs that are mentioned in courses would come through the coordinating board for approval. That Prairie View and Sam Houston be offered space on the campus, and that Prairie View and Sam Houston have the authority to offer any of their current programs at that site. We also want to make sure that if Prairie View and Sam Houston take up and start either leasing space or included in the project or buy into the space, that they have the same access for their faculty and their students and the student services and their staff as the University of Houston. That all three institutions, University of Houston, Prairie View, and Sam Houston, will collaborate on P16 initiatives in the area and not duplicate, and work together to increase and have these be new students and not just switching students around from campus. And that the University of Houston continues to maintain the same admission standards as their main campus. And that concludes our comments, and we'll be glad to answer any questions.
Susan. Chairman?
Thank you very much,
Turn.
Chair. I appreciate it. I know I'm going to regret this at some point in time, but it's inevitable. I have to call on the chairman of the strategic planning, Mr. Neil Adams, to give him the microphone. But Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I probably will have a new legal assistant when I get home who makes arrangements for my rent cars, but I will have to pass on a bit of history. I probably have only a photograph. It's actually not a photograph. It's a poster. I lost a wager about 6 years ago, and that wager was with a good friend of mine that graduated from this institution in Austin, that either one of us would wear our hats at a particular conference where we were both speakers, depending on who lost the wager. I lost the wager, and for the only time since I came out of my mother's womb, did I have orange on my body. And I had an orange hat that had national champions all over it, flashing lights, and that was blown up as a poster. But I have the only probably signature in Mac Brown's lifetime that it says, to a great Aggie who looks good in orange, gig 'em, Mac Brown. And he signed it. So I have that on my office wall, and I get asked a lot of questions about that from time to time. As chair of the strategic planning committee, we also will dispense with the chairman's report this morning, and we will defer that to the October meeting. Part of our responsibility, obviously, is that any time there is a project that involves real estate or construction that comes through this committee, you have in front of you the staff's recommendation. I will point out that of the 5 criteria that are under the coordinating board's rules in reviewing projects of this type, 4 of those are applicable. And this particular project meets the requirements of the coordinating board's rules, 4 out of those 4 which are applicable. The staff's recommendation is that this be approved with certain conditions, that the education and general space be offered to both Prairie View A&M and Sam Houston for program offerings. 2, that U of H receives authorization from the Bond Review Board to issue the necessary general revenue bonds. And 3, programs to be offered by U of H at the proposed branch campus must be approved by the coordinating board. And at this time, we would normally entertain a motion, but I'm going to turn unless someone has any questions of the staff about the information that's in your packet related to the 4 standards that are applicable, I'm going to turn the chair back over to Chairman Shepard to consider both proposals, and then I'll at that time reserve any comments I have as a board member.
Neil, thank you very much. What I would like to do at this time, as I had mentioned earlier, is entertain a motion to get it on the table, and then we will have any necessary discussion that the board needs to have. If you need to hear from the staff or any members from the U of H or Prairie View or Sam Houston, we will bring them back up to have that discussion. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion. Ms. Bricker?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to move the proposal both from the Committee on Academic Excellence and Research and Strategic Planning.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Lynn Phillips. Okay. Needless to say, I don't need to say, is there any discussion? So, obviously at this point in time, I will open it to discussion. I'd like to bring a little bit of order to it first. If you would like to have, or let's talk about having any questions answered of the staff first, if we can, and then we'll move on from there.
Mr. Chairman, I want to...
Question?
Yeah, I have a question. On the amendment, which is in our goldenrod material, we changed the first right of refusal from Prairie View from 1 year to 2 years, but implementation after the second academic year. If I read that correctly, that basically is a 4-year period. They would have to exercise their planning option within the first 2 years, and then they would have 2 years to implement. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what the proposal is?
No, the implementation would be by the beginning of the second academic year following the exercise of the right. So they would have...
They got 2 years to exercise the right, and then once they exercise the right, then they've got 2 academic years to implement, the way I read the proposal.
That would be one calendar year plus the beginning of the next year, so that's not quite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chairman, do you want to spend a little time explaining that and why the staff entertained that?
Yes. Well, I think David wants to.
Okay.
I think Mr. Adams' interpretation is correct.
Okay.
So it depends. There are 2 years to exercise right, and there'll be additional 2 years from whether they do it in 1 year or 3 months, or at the end of the 2 years, there would be an additional 2 years to actually implement the way it's written.
So it's a...
Yes, sir.
4 years? So it's a 4-year time period. And Prairie View is asking for 5
To implement.
And this would...
That's what I understand.
Yeah, I thought let's go into a little more detail.
Okay.
Obviously, one of the things that we're dealing with here is planning. Now remember, this is not, some of the things we're offering here today have not gone through the planning process. And that normally, as we all know, takes a couple of sessions. So, I mean, it certainly seems reasonable to me if we move forward with this that you give the institutions a period of time to do their planning. Also, they're going to have to go back to the legislature, more than likely, for funding, and that would give them a couple of cycles. So, if I read it correctly, then we really are talking about 5 years. Okay, so we're talking about the first year and then 2 cycles, which is not unreasonable in the academic world. David, you want to add to that or take away?
I read it as 4.
Yeah, I was going to say, or contradict what the chair just said, which makes him a little nervous.
The reason I asked the question is I want to be sure that not only do we understand what we're saying here in terms of what, if we adopt this, is I want to be sure the institutions understand what we're saying, and particularly if we want to modify that in any way. So, David, help me again to understand what the language is proposing.
The way I understand the language is Prairie View has the opportunity, if the board approves this today, 2 years from this date to exercise the right to exclusively offer these programs. And then if the 2 years from whatever date that they exercise that right, so up to 2 years, so it's a total of 2 years, a total of 4 years from the date potentially.
If they exercise the option on the last day of the second year,
correct,
then they would have 2 academic years to try to implement the program, which means go through and get planning approval and funding. And I guess in thinking out loud with my colleagues on the board, I'm more concerned not about the 2-year options to exercise as much as I am the implementation phase if they choose to do that. Is that a reasonable time to go through, as Chairman Shepard, the planning process and the funding process? Is that realistic and fair?
And I'd also like, I'd like a staff response to that, but I would also like to hear from Dr. Wright again.
Yeah, absolutely.
About that, okay? Dr. Wright, you want to come to the table? Because after the staff responds to Neil's question, I'd also like you to respond to it. Is that enough time for you? Because if you ask for the 5 years, is this 4 years almost jive with what you want? But if we go ahead and let the staff answer, and then if you could help us out as to understand what your request is, okay?
Can I ask a question? It appears to me, just from reading this literally, that it says they have 2 years from today, assuming this gets approved today. And then after that, they have to implement it by the beginning of the second year.
Right. Only 3 years.
So I think it's a 3-year deal.
It's 3 years. It's the beginning of the 4th year.
Yeah, but that's not 4 years.
That's right. That's 3 years.
See, that's why I was confused too.
That's 3 years and 1 day, I think.
Yeah, so if you were allowed to go through 2 cycles, you'd actually go to 5 years.
Well, first of all, I think Dr. Gardner needs to respond as to what he intended by this language, because he's the drafter of it.
We intended that there were up to 2 years from today to exercise the right, following the point of which, and there are only 2 years to do it, so let's say the maximum time to exercise the right, there would be 2 years from that point to actually that the program would have to be implemented at the site. So the basic idea was, if the program was needed in the area, we wanted somebody to offer the program. Prairie View should have the first opportunity to offer that program. Each of these programs is currently approved at Prairie View, and as Dr. Wright noted earlier, it is the case that Prairie View is the only institution offering the PhD in juvenile forensic psychology anywhere to our knowledge. But these programs are in place. As to how long it would take for them to actually be offered at this site, I think Dr. Wright would be in the best position to address after the programs have in fact been approved by the coordinating board at this point, so they don't require seminary authority, they don't require additional approval from the board to offer.
Before you answer, Dr. Wright, so if I understand what you're seeing is they come through no planning process other than, as at this level, the only planning process is what the institution has to do in order to bring the program, to implement the program.
If the board were to approve this,
that's what I'm saying. Then we approve this today, then they don't have to come back to the coordinating board with any additional authority.
Correct.
It's an implementation issue with the institution. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yes.
But also, Dr. Wright, we're going to give you obviously a chance to respond, but it certainly may be a resource issue as well. So if you could address both of those for us, please.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity. The reason we were requesting 5 years is that if you think about 1 year from where we are right now, we don't have a sense of what the legislature will appropriate for our funding for next year. And so consequently, let's say we find out next June, then we would essentially be out of time related to what we could do. We thought we would need more time so we could clearly, one of the things we're going to have to do with first the A&M Board of Regents and then with the legislature is work to increase funding so we can offer some of the things there. Clearly, for instance, we don't know what is going to happen related to OCRA. That's the big question mark that we have, and we thought it would take that much more time for us to then be in a position to know exactly what we could do.
Yeah. Doctor, in that regard, just so the board understands this, obviously none of this is in your LAR, right?
When you say none of this?
Well, when we're talking about new programs,
okay,
you have, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but as we look at some of these new programs, you had not anticipated implementing these as you developed your new LAR. It's really in the form of a question.
Okay.
I mean,
that's correct. That is correct. But clearly, let me respond also in this way. We have met with legislative groups about our budget, as I'm sure other institutions have, and we've consistently talked about the significance of OCRA funding for what we have to do, as well as several other things. But that is the pin or the key that will unlock everything else that Prairie View has to be able to do.
My feeling is that this whole proposal that's before us today was brought to the forefront, and it's well established that we want to send a lot more kids to college, and we need a lot more facilities to put those kids in, and there are a lot of kids out there that need to go. We all agree on that, and we need more facilities to do that with. But this proposal came to us so quickly, and it's on such a hot burner for U of H because of the land that's available for a short period of time. So things, and as was said in the comments earlier, that from June to September to get a proposal like this through is almost unheard of, and it's because of the time constraints for the land purchase, correct? So if we are rushing things to accommodate a great financial opportunity for this area and for the state to save a lot of money in what it would cost to build a facility like this, then it would seem to me if we are accommodating U of H in that area to speed things along, that we should accommodate Prairie View A&M and San Houston with time frames to adapt to this, do the research they need to do to open that up, and give them what they need to do what they need to do in light of this hurry-up proposal. If we're going to give on one end to speed things up, I think we should give more time on the other end for the affected institutions. So I would be much more agreeable to giving both institutions a lot of leeway in adapting to this advanced time schedule.
Could I respond to that, if you don't mind? In my comments, I mentioned that one of the problems for us has been that we've not had sufficient time to evaluate the entire proposal. For instance, we met September the 11th at the Woodlands. The proposal in front of you today is similar in some respects to that proposal. The difference primarily being the right of first refusal is included. At that meeting, I brought along more than 30 questions and concerns. At that meeting, we did not address those questions and concerns. Some of them had to deal with, well, how will we, if we're sharing certain areas, count semester credit hours, FTEs, faculty this and that, and so on down the line. I mean, I've mentioned OCR here, but you see, among other things, with more time, we would be in a position to say, is one of the proposals we want to put forward is purchasing one of the buildings ourselves, you see, is one of the things, but we haven't had enough time to evaluate that. I have not had enough time to ask our board would they support such a position and so forth. And that's why in saying table things, it would give us an opportunity to evaluate the entire proposal.
Okay. Mr. Adams? 2-3 things. And I keep hearing this time issue come up. We've been at this for 4 months, and there's been a significant amount of time invested in this on the staff and this board, as well as the institutions. And all due respect to academia, if I move my profession, or many of the people in this room move their business along the way academia does, we'd all starve to death. And I'm a little concerned about the fact that keeps being a crutch. And I understand planning and analyzing and that kind of thing, but we analyze something to death. Now, Dr. Ryda, 30 days ago, the first commissioner recommendation had a first right of refusal in it for Texas A&M, for Prairie View A&M. It was 1 year. And that was laid out at our last board meeting that we couldn't vote on. This one has a first right of refusal that's been modified, and I guess what I'm asking, and I don't disagree with what Lorraine's saying in terms of being fair to the institutions involved in terms of more time, and that resonates with me. I mean, we don't need to put a restriction on something that isn't going to work. And that's the reason I asked the question initially. And if it's, right now, it's a 2-year option to exercise not only the programs, but you've got an option to purchase or lease. Now, one of the proposals that I was going to suggest as amendment here is in item 4, it's a 1-year option on lease or purchase. Well, those need to be married up with the program options. Those need to be whatever the same time frame. Now, what I think we're asking you, you're asking for 5 years. Is that 5 years option to purchase option to review these plans and exercise an option and then implement? Or are you talking about exercise and implement within a 5-year period?
First, though, you just chided us for time. I find it ironic that the coordinating board has not given us a definite answer on the Office of Civil Rights issue, one that I raised in the very first letter that I wrote to the coordinating board, and one that's been on the table every time, and one that has enormous implications. Governor Bush signed that in the year 2000. Governor Perry and the legislature has supported that in 3 different legislative sessions, and all I've asked is let's resolve this most critical of issue, and the coordinating board is taking time on that. So I understand that. So I would argue on the other side it takes time as well. But I challenge the coordinating board staff, did we not say we have questions? After the meeting of September the 11th, we were not approached by the coordinating board until last week when we told that they would be going forward with a proposal this week. No one contacted us and said, let's work our way through your 36 questions and so forth. At that meeting when it ended, it just ended. No contact. I challenge you, check my phone records, check my emails, check everything. No contact until last week. So, sure, we're raising questions, but I would also argue they are one of the problems with the whole time being stretched out.
The question, though, Dr. Wright, is from your standpoint as Prairie View A&M, if this were to be adopted today, what does it take for you to implement those or exercise that option and implement that program? Are you asking for what kind of 5 years are you asking is my question?
Okay. I believe that we need more than 2 years to make sure we can develop as well as acquire the necessary funding to go forward with the program.
If you had a 3-year option to consider that, which gets you through not only this next session, but the next session, and then you had another 3 years to implement that, is that going to meet your objective?
I would have to say it's much better than what's currently on the table being proposed.
Thank you, Dr. Wright.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, so I'm sorry. So back to Neil's point about item 4 with the 1 year for the lease purchase. What would be the time extension? The same there?
If you're going to go, Lorraine, a 3-year option and a 3-year to implement, then that opportunity to lease or purchase has got to be available for that 6-year period.
I agree. I just wanted to clarify that.
And it's going to be consistent.
Yes.
Mr. Adams, your recommendation, obviously, as you said earlier, was to sync them up.
That 1 year would change to 6 years under item 4.
I have several questions and several comments, but I'm going to specifically target this one first. And that is on agenda item 3B, number 2. My question is, I guess of staff, is that are these programs, with the exception I think I heard of the juvenile forensic psychology program, are these programs currently being offered at Prairie View A&M and at the University of Houston in one of its campuses? Or are these unique programs that are not? For example, the MED in counseling I know is offered at U of H. Is it currently being offered at Prairie View A&M?
Yes.
Okay.
Every one of these programs, and I misspoke that the unique program is really juvenile justice, not juvenile forensic psychology.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But each of these programs is currently approved and available at Prairie View A&M University. A through L are actually addressed specifically in the priority plan.
The 2000, let's make sure we understand.
The priority plan is what was approved in 2000 and signed by Governor Bush and the board. Those are specifically referenced, and we thought it was important to include those. And we also included the nursing programs, because those are programs that in which Prairie View does good work. Intervention specifically in our own mission statement for Prairie View, which we think are important programs for Prairie View. So that those are not included in the priority plan, but we included those as well. Not all of these programs are offered by every one of the institutions. Nursing is not offered at University of Houston, but many of these are. Counseling, computer science, construction science, accounting, computer information systems, electrical engineering, architecture, electrical engineering, and educational leadership.
So I guess my real question is if we are denying students all of these programs for 6 years, how fair is that, and how much access is that for these students not just in this area. It would be one thing, and I heard over and over and over again, whether it was historically black university with historically black students, or whether it's the broader picture of Sam Houston, Prairie View, and this proposed campus. When we talk about a campus, we don't talk about a finite number of students only coming from that area or from Texas. We're talking about access to students across the country and the world that can come to these universities. So my question is, why would we wait 6 years to offer A through N? That seems like it's actually pulling back and denying students that are currently sophomores that would be juniors to take, well, these are actually all MED and above. So these are current seniors that could not take these courses at all for 6 years.
I don't think we're saying that it would take 6 years. That would be
But it could take
the
6 years.
maximum amount of time. It could go faster, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Wright?
That's correct.
And it could go very quickly.
One thing, Lori, too, is that
But maximum of 6 years.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
So you're not saying everything would be delayed 6 years, Laurie?
But it could be.
Could be.
All of these courses could be.
Could be.
One other
But
point.
that wouldn't be in the best interest of
Thank you.
Prairie View to do
That's
that.
correct.
They want to offer courses to students.
That's
Our
correct.
goal is not to delay and destroy the intent of offering more opportunity to students in Texas.
That's correct.
Nor is it our intent.
Right.
One other point here that sometimes I think gets lost in the length of the wording here is that the proposal before us from U of H is upper level only.
Right.
There's no restrictions to offer first and second year programs at this campus by any of these institutions. It's an upper level approval.
Right.
So whatever they end up agreeing on in terms of space needs, if they're offering a first and second year program on their current campus that's already approved by the courting board, that isn't going to keep them from doing that at this campus.
Except that, Neil, if they have a right of first refusal,
On these programs.
On those programs cannot be offered by the University of Houston at all whatsoever
At
within
that
6 years.
At that campus.
At that campus. No, I understand. At that campus.
On any other campus they have in Harris County.
Exactly. So it seems incredibly restrictive to deny for 6 years. I could see 1 or 2 years, but for 6 years to deny these courses being offered at that campus seems unfair to the students.
But you're really only talking about if their right of first refusal expires at the end of either 2 or 3, whatever we decide. At that point, if they haven't exercised it, then right.
They're going to have to exercise in the first 3 years.
They're only putting it on hold for that 2 or 3 year period, right?
And they won't all be on hold.
If we were amended.
No, they will be on hold. From University of Houston's perspective.
Well, yes, right. But our goal is, mine is, I don't care which one of the institutions offers it. Well, I just want the programs available to students, and it could get there faster, even for these ones reserved.
I could point out as well that some of these programs are currently offered at the Woodland site by Sam Houston, in fact, and they would not be precluded from offering those courses at that site.
Mr. Ryder, we want to get you in this conversation.
Well, mine's from a little bit different perspective, Mr. Chairman. There are some of us, like Madam Chairman from West Texas and me from East Texas, that have not been in the fray of this battle because these universities aren't in our districts. And because of that, the information that some of us had on the board is limited to this package we've seen or the number of emails and correspondence that we've been getting.
Which is a lot.
Yeah. But, I would really like to hear some discussion also on this whole issue because I am challenged by the comments about duplication of courses. And I want to hear, Susan, you had noted in your comments, I had written down that you said we have taken into account the impact of the duplication of these courses. And I guess what I'd like to hear from the staff as well as the institutions is, one, how has that been taken into account? Number two, if we're to deny this, then to what extent could a Sam Houston and a Prairie View be able, with the facilities you have, to provide these courses to this growing population base? is that possible if you stay static today? And try to, for those of us who've not been in the fray of this, to walk us through that. I don't mean going through course by course, but to understand that whole issue of the duplication, because I'm still, even though I hear we're going to duplicate with Sam Houston here and somewhat with the other campus, Prairie View, I don't quite have an understanding for how significant that's going to be for either one of the two campuses. And because I hear numbers of 37% for Sam Houston, well, I don't know what that equates to in numbers, absolute numbers. And secondly, to really understand, even if we were to delay this, we've got 1.4 million people that are growing at, I forget what the number was, but a pretty phenomenal rate. And could these institutions even respond to that growing population base? And that's staff as well as institutions.
Yeah. Yes. Dr. Gaddard, would you like to respond to that?
Well, the answer is we can respond. I need to be more specific. I need to have more specificity before I could say which we respond to. But the answer is we have responded in the past. We're growing at a rate that is virtually unprecedented in the state. So we have done that in the past. If we're given the opportunity, I give you my assurance we can respond to it in the future. Now, if you wanted to talk about any specific program that we're currently offering, we are geared up to offer, our existing programs. There would be some programs that really, Dr. Wright in that list would be the one to respond to. But in terms of the programs that we're currently offering, we can respond to those. We have in the past and we will in the future.
I would like to make the point that I hope I leave you with the impression that we agree with the University of Houston on the critical need to serve that area. And in fact, in their very first proposal, and I apologize if my number's incorrect, where they said they would offer 44 programs, we at Prairie View cannot offer all of the programs that the University of Houston said it could do. The University of Houston in its proposal said a number of things that we would have to acknowledge that they have the resources, they may have the track record, they may have relationships, that we would say, I can see why they are coming into that area. But I would say, given the resources that the state has already invested in Prairie View, we have been able to expand into that area and to provide in many areas, the areas that we're involved in, and we believe we can continue to do that. If you recall in my comments earlier, I said that we believe we can be the provider of business courses. That is something that has been on our drawing board for some period of time. I'm not surprised that the University of Houston would disagree with us and say we should be in competition because there is a demand. But we believe that we can meet that need in the business if that was one of our courses. That's the one that was taken off. So we understand that we cannot do this alone, that we just don't have the resources to meet this need entirely. And that's why we're saying that we have no problem in sitting down and working with our fellow sister institutions and trying to best address this entire issue.
Chairman, if I might add one more thing, sir. Because we've been growing so rapidly, we've gone from a little under 13,000 to 16,000 students in 4 years. Because we've been growing so rapidly and because we've seen this need, we've asked the state to approve considerable capital construction projects on our campus. Over the past 4 years, we will build about $160 million worth of various academic buildings, dormitories and such. So we have been planning to address the increase in population. We've been planning to address the increase in demand for students to come to Sam Houston, and there's been considerable expenditure by the state to accommodate that. So the answer to your question is yes, we have in the past and we will in the future accommodate the demand.
From the staff's perspective, will you address it, please?
Okay. when we looked at the programs that are being offered currently and what is being proposed by the University of Houston, there are really on this list 4 programs that are duplicative.
Out of the 44?
Out of the ones on this list right here.
Okay, on that list. I'm talking about...
Out of the priority plan list, there are 4 that are duplicative. There are a lot of students in the area. As far as for the Sam Houston, their 37% includes the students not only at the Woodlands but also at the Huntsville campus.
That's correct.
And the staff, what we considered was when we looked at, we did 3 different scenarios looking at what we considered reasonable percentage of the students that they would lose from the area that could possibly elect to go to this campus. And we did it program by program. And we looked at, okay, if University of Houston offers their what they considered their phase 1 programs, which were part of the programs, and we looked at the students at Sam Houston that are residential students, because we do not see this as a residential campus. So we took that into account, because we figured this is going to mostly affect the Woodlands campus, but it would not have as great effect on the Huntsville campus. So we looked at how that would affect some of their programs, and we took that into account. We also took into account the growth in the area and looked at how fast that area was growing and how that could be best accommodated. And the growth is down in the Cypher and Tomball area. The students that they have from that area, we expect them to actually continue to get the majority of the students from that area that go to the main campus as freshmen. This site will not be offering freshman and sophomore level courses. The University of Houston, their proposal they don't want to offer freshman and sophomore courses there. So we don't expect them to be losing those students that want the residential experience. And so that's part of what we have taken into account in looking at what it's going to do. And we do expect it to hit the Woodlands campus for a short period of time until that growth can catch up. And so I agree that they probably would lose some of that.
Susan, I've heard something. I guess it may be new to me, and I'm sort of like Whit. I haven't been in the center of the storm, but and Governor Conway was certainly a hero of mine. And when he said to stop colleges and universities from offering courses which duplicate those, I'm sure he meant that. But I'm hearing that we have a large body of students that are underserved who are place-bound. That's a word I heard somebody use, which says to me, maybe it's not that important that we avoid duplication of courses if we are offering these courses to place-bound students who won't take this course somewhere else. Is that a factor that we've had under consideration?
That is a factor, and we looked at the demographics of the area, and it is the school districts in those areas are becoming more economically disadvantaged, so they are less likely to be able to go away to college. We looked at that. They are working, most of the courses, a lot of these courses that Prairie View is wanting to offer and is currently offering at their graduate center or graduate level, it's not getting to that bachelor's. And that's one of the things that we looked at. We looked at the percentage of the population that has an associate or just some college, because we feel that was probably a very big target area for that area, for the region, is looking at those that do not have the bachelor's and going on.
Commissioner? We also took a look at the different, and we probably haven't emphasized this enough, we also took a look at the different characteristics of the students that go to these different institutions. We've already referred to the fact that some of the students in this area would be interested in a residential experience, particularly as first or second year students. We have taken into consideration the fact that, yes, there are courses offered at the Woodlands, which is 22 miles away from this proposed site. That's a long distance in a highly dense urban area. We took into consideration the fact that these three institutions have different characteristics regarding admission standards and the different segments of students, potential students that these institutions would attract. Given all those factors, we thought that the recommendations made sense. We think that there might be short-term impact, but eventually the growth will catch up sooner rather than later, we believe, and will allow all of these institutions to flourish and grow.
To follow up on something the Commissioner just said, recommendation 9 regarding admission standards for students reflects the fact that even when the same program is in place, the same admission standards aren't in place at each institution. They are attracting different students. And I would add, and we think that differentiates programs. It's also the case that there are differences in tuition fees offered at each of the institutions. So students have the opportunity to make a choice on the program that they think potentially is the best, the program for which they can be admitted, and for many students that may be at each institution. But there are differences in terms of tuition and fees, and which provides different levels of access depending on which institution the student might choose. Over 30 semester credit hours, University of Houston is I've forgotten exactly, but at least $1,000 more at the undergraduate level than Prairie View or Sam Houston State. Prairie View is a little bit more expensive last I saw than Sam Houston State. I don't know if that still applies. So those things were taken into account as well.
We also have the issue, Mr. Chairman, that we've got to add 630,000 students by 2015. And we've got a capacity problem as seen by that deficit side up there. I don't think any of our decisions should ever be driven by real estate transaction as it's been accused in this by some folks on this particular issue. But it's certainly an important factor. Capital up front is a huge issue anytime we start talking about expanding a campus or adding a campus. And to say that it shouldn't be considered as a factor or even a major factor, I think is not being realistic. Somebody alluded to one of my favorite governors as well, and Governor Connolly, and I've been on this board for 5 years, along with Curtis. I think the only person that's been on this board longer than I is the chairman. And I can assure those that have spoken today that when the governor appointed me, I took that very seriously, and I take that very seriously today. And when the Senate confirmed me to this position, I take that responsibility extremely serious. And for us to sit here and to go through what we have for 4 months to look at this data and receive the input from these three institutions, my focus is on what's best for kids. That is my focus, and I believe that's what I was charged to do in expanding opportunities and access to kids. We have certain rules at this coordinating board. As I mentioned, in terms of real estate, we've got 5 standards. 4 out of those 5 apply to this situation. 4 out of those 4 that apply, this request meets those. We have 7 criteria that we judge programs on. The staff and the commissioner has recommended this proposal that it fits within those 7 criteria. If we need to adjust this, which I do believe that the motion needs to be adjusted to be fair, then so be it. But I don't have to say to anyone that what I was charged with, that my colleagues on this board are meeting their challenge and their responsibilities. And to say otherwise, I think, is to offend the good name of this board and what it does.
Ms. Mendoza.
This is almost an exciting prospect for a student that lives in this area, that if we do this well and right, they have options, they have choices. I wanted to make sure I understood that recommendations 5 and 6 do indeed enable the growth of Sam Houston as well as Prairie View A&M in order to give them the opportunity to expand in this area. Is that what I'm reading here?
Yes.
Absolutely. My second question would then be to the institutions. From your reading of these two, do they not enable the growth of either Prairie View A&M or Sam Houston, from your point of view?
I don't have the
Are you aware of what 5 and 6
I'm
are?
going to say I don't have it in front of me. I apologize.
It is talking about in addition to programs listed in 2 above, Prairie View and A&M may offer any of its current authorized main campus and graduate center programs at Northwest Houston site, and Sam Houston the same except for the restricted programs in 2.
Dr. Gatter, I'm not going to put words in Mendoza's mouth, but I think maybe where you're headed, are you asking him how practical is this?
Exactly. If the intent is to enable growth by these 2 institutions to this area that's booming and growing with respect to students, are these enabling recommendations?
Well, I agree. It does provide us with that opportunity. I mean, I think the question before the board is that in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Texas for us to offer the same thing in the same building, essentially the same place as the University of Houston and Prairie View? If you think it's in the best interest, you're going to vote for it, and we're going to do the best we can. We're going to assess the situation, and we might offer, we might not. My feeling right now is we would. But it's your decision as to whether that's in the best interest of the state citizens of the state higher education.
Okay.
As related to that same issue, at the MITSE, are you not offering similar programs there?
No, sir. 10 years ago, there was an agreement as to which university would offer which courses. All of us were...
But there's no duplication at all at the MITSE?
There is no duplication at all. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Okay, there's no duplication at all.
With the University of Houston, the language has been changed to call it the Upper Division Branch campus, indicating that, and has been said, that U of H will only offer upper division courses. Seems like there will be a great need for lower division courses in these areas. And is that what was the thought behind the enabling the growth in 5 and 6? Is that there is going to be a plethora of needs that must be filled if you just take the upper division classes to U of H?
There is actually a part of the Tomball North Harris Community College campus about 2 miles from here. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to make sure, and University of Houston in the proposal wants to make sure that the community colleges is doing such a good job, and they have a high transfer rate, that they felt that it was best to have the community college continue to offer those 2-year, the freshman and sophomore level, and then transfer the students. And so they did not want to overlap those basic programs that the students already have access to. What they are trying to offer is what the students didn't have access to.
North Harris Montgomery College is growing very rapidly. All the institutions we're talking about here now serve the students from North Harris Montgomery. I believe that North Harris Montgomery, at least for the foreseeable future, has the ability to serve those students. They have taken that into account. They have a taxing district. Right now, the last figures I saw, about 500 students, a little more than 500 students a year transferred to Sam Houston. Similar numbers to University of Houston and also University of Houston downtown, I believe. It's a lesser number for Prairie View, but Prairie View is an important destination as well. And we would hope for that to continue. And that's, as you know, at previous board meetings, we've talked about the important role of community colleges as access points in the state, and we need to continue to encourage that. We anticipate that 70% of our Closing the Gaps increases will be due to community colleges statewide. So we're trying to reflect that in this recommendation.
Let me call on Dr. Phillips real quick.
I think I have the same confusion Mrs. Mendoza might. Should the words upper division then be in 5 and 6? Or do you intend that they could offer lower division courses?
Yeah, they can. We could clarify that. We referred to this earlier as an upper division site.
Yeah, well, I do think you ought to put upper division in there because very confusing.
Are we intended to restrict this to strictly upper? We had intended to restrict it for the University of Houston.
Right, not for the...
Specifically, that has been their request all along.
So, not for the other institutions? Is that the intent?
We are letting the other institutions
That's the way I read
select their option on how they would rather do that.
So they could offer
That's the way I'm reading it.
freshman, sophomore level classes.
whatever they wanted.
Yes, and we would encourage them to have discussions with the North Harris Montgomery Community College District, as we always would in terms of lower division courses, and whether that makes sense.
I don't understand the policy behind that. If we're trying to protect North Harris County Community College,
I think
why would we? I just
Thank you, President Chancellor Pickleman.
John, come on up and join us. For those of y'all who may not know, this is John Pickleman, who is the president of North.
I'm John Pickleman, Chancellor of the North Harris Montgomery Community College District, and we have been supportive of a proposal to expand access to higher education opportunities in our area. Our district is 1,400 square miles. It has 1.5 million residents. Our district has 46,000 students. We continue to operate on 5 major campuses, and to consider bringing in lower division courses is simply a duplication. Those services are already there. We are expanding, and that was never a part of the proposal. The proposal was that this institution, the University of Houston Northwest, was to model University of Houston Victoria and University of Houston Clear Lake, which has been operating very well with the cooperation of the community colleges. We started the MITSI. The MITSI is not a university-driven institution in the Woodlands. Our taxpayers paid for that building. We, in effect, are being the broker of these courses that facilitate our students to get a bachelor's degree. As I've said to the commissioner, if you really want to expand that, why not let an institution already in place, that is, this community college district, to start offering upper level baccalaureate degrees. Why not? Fair is fair. We're already there. We have the capacity to do that. You're talking about, in very straight, honest terms, duplication. We have a great system where community colleges are feeding these schools. We think it needs to be expanded to provide more opportunities. But to come in and to offer freshman, sophomore also violates your rules, as a matter of fact. And, of course, you can change the rules. But if a university wants to offer in a community college area freshman, sophomore level courses, they have to go through your regional higher education councils. You will be bypassing that if a strict interpretation is made that these two institutions can come in and offer freshman, sophomore level courses. That simply is contrary to what this board has established over the years.
I really thought that the interpretation was that there would be upper level division only for any of the universities. I never understood in any way that there would be freshman and sophomore courses for any of the universities. And I would like to ask if numbers 5 and 6, because one is talking about Prairie View A&M and the other Sam Houston State, but I would think that the University of Houston would also be able to offer any of its currently authorized programs it chooses. Why would University of Houston be precluded from numbers 5 and 6?
At the beginning, it talks about reference to the board rules. Now, Dr. Pickleman mentioned what's currently in place in terms of the lower divisions. That's according to board rules. That would still apply, and the board would have to address that. It was made clear to us that we did not want to take the board's current authority out of whatever decision was made here. And so we were trying to do that. Second point, just lost when I turned 35, and I'm much older than that now.
36.
I'm sorry. In terms of the University of Houston offering other courses. The way our rules currently stand, once a branch campus or a MITSI or a university center is approved, the institution or institutions approved to offer at that location
have the authority to provide any programs currently in their inventory.
Okay, so that would be
So it would apply to university as well. It wasn't necessary given our current rules to mention that.
Okay.
This was Prairie View, A&M University, and Sam Houston State was specifically mentioned simply to make clear that if they were involved, we would expect that they would have that ability as well. We wanted to make sure that was clear.
Is there a precedent for any other branch campus to offer a piece of their facility for sale or lease, other than a MIPSI, which has, I guess, a lease? Is there a precedent for any other branch campus to say, we're going to, whether it's Texas State or University of Texas or anybody else, we're going to buy this facility and build this facility out and offer these programs, but we'll offer for someone to come in and buy or lease? Is there a precedent for that? There is.
Yeah, there is. There's one in my backyard. Southwest Community College in Brownsville has literally built and leased buildings to UT Brownsville.
Okay. Because to me, this is about a template that we're creating, and if we look at the presentation that was done by our staff, the regions with the largest general academic space deficit, it's very clear that the three regions that the state demographer has identified, that within those three regions, the Metroplex, South Texas, and the Gulf Coast, that within the Gulf Coast, the fastest growing region with the biggest deficit of academic space is the Northwest Corridor, because that is the fastest growing. It seems to me that we are setting a precedent, and what was said earlier, it's an open invitation for others to do similarly. I think we need to be looking at an open invitation for others to do similarly if we're ever to close the gaps. We're looking at the state of Texas with huge deficits throughout the state. So whether it be a community college or whether it be a large institution or small institution, rural or urban or suburban, it seems to me that we are creating a new template for closing the gaps with community for universities to look elsewhere, to look at some place down the road or some abandoned building to purchase and offer classes. And so it seems to me that this is, in fact, the direction that our board needs to go in order to close the gap.
Dr. Gooch, would you mind joining your colleagues a minute? I want to ask a question that I know was discussed, not at the board level. Yes.
Back to the subject of 5 and 6 that Elaine and Lynn were on. So are we going to insert language to clarify that? Because we've kind of gotten differing answers here.
Or we insert the language for upper level.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
So we are going to add that language. I just want to make sure that we're all in vision.
Our rules would have required that it be addressed with North Harris Montgomery, but we can clarify it by adding it.
But even with that clarification, it enables growth for the other two institutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. And that's what we experience. Please understand that the University Center in the Woodlands is an upper-level institution. The growth that Dr. Gatner's talking about is upper level. It's not freshman-sophomore. The freshman-sophomore growth has come from our college district. And I know that if the community was aware, because I had a Chamber of Commerce executive say, we will withdraw our support if anything is done to hurt our community college system. This would, unless we go through the rules and we agree for Prairie View or Sam Houston to come in and offer courses that we're also offering. That is, when you go back to Governor Connolly's vision for this coordinating board, it was to avoid the very thing you're talking about. But is there a need for an upper level institution in this area? There is. And hopefully in partnership, these three universities can get together like they have in the Woodlands in offering in peace, unduplicated courses and providing the best service of any MIPSI in the state.
Okay, so that's clarified.
We did need for our current rules to stay in place and for this to be upper level.
Okay. That answers my question.
One of the things that has been mentioned, as I said before, not at the board level, but in some other discussions, was talking about maybe some consolidation. And when I speak of consolidation, I'm talking about you all would concentrate your efforts at this new campus and give up your position at the Mitzi. I understand y'all are reluctant to do that, and I'd like for you to respond to it. And then, Dr. Gattner, if you could speak to, if you all had the Mitzi, by yourself, do you have the resources to be able to continue to attract students in that area?
Mr. Chairman, the University of Houston downtown campus is very active at Woodlands, Mitzi. The main campus is not. We have gone through and looked at the analysis because we had heard that that was one of the options, and the cost would be about $2 million a year on the downtown campus if they were suddenly pulled out of that particular location.
How do you arrive at that number?
Based on the student credit hours. I think one of the fallacies that, in fact, if I could try to respond just very briefly before Jim does, our original proposal was really an open market. And again, the coordinating board would not agree with that. The commissioner would not agree with that. But I still think it's important to think about the open market concept as you make your decisions. Number one, from day one, we have said that under no circumstances were we going to offer the freshman and sophomore level courses. So that is 50% of the degree that is unduplicated right off the top, because we value and rely greatly on our community colleges and we get great students from them. So we did not ever plan to offer freshman and sophomore courses. Number two, we will not compete with a residential campus at that location. This is not going to have dormitories and residential life. So I don't see students selecting to go there as opposed to a residential campus. Number three, in an urban area, and I shared with this board the last time I spoke my first experience in an urban area, but I have to tell you that distances are incredibly important. I want you to think about our central campus location with 36,000 students. We are 3 miles from the downtown campus with 11,000 plus students. 3 miles. We're across the street from TSU. We're less than 20 miles from the Clear Lake campus. We're 7.5 miles from our Pearland campus. We're about 20 miles from our campus in Sugar Land. We're 2.5 miles from the Texas Medical Center. And so my point very simply is that mileage and distance in urban areas have a dramatic impact on the question of duplication of courses. The fourth point that I would share on duplication that to me is very critical is that students that can go to classes in the morning often can't go in the afternoon. And those that go at night on our campus are a different cohort than can go in the mornings. And those that go on the weekend are a further different component. And so time of day truly rules out duplication, particularly in an area where you have such immense demand and such large populations of people that are underserved. I'd also make the statement that the content of degrees with the same names vary dramatically. And you can argue that that's duplication, but I would argue that it's not. And foci within degrees allow for very different employment opportunities. They're perceived very differently by graduate schools. And so I would argue that those are not duplicated. And our point is that our original proposal was to say to our colleagues, you offer 55 different degrees that we don't offer. Please come and offer all of those. We don't have a problem if you offer the same degrees that we offer, because they'd be offered such that the market would respond to those particular degrees. And when you talk about payment, remember you pay on a student credit hour basis. So it's not as if you give us a block of funds to run those programs and that we in essence duplicate. But in reality, the economics are such that you don't duplicate because of the student credit hour production and the payment schedule used by the state of Texas.
Dr. Gaddam, before you respond, though, the one thing that has bothered me through this process, and most of you all know my background with a regional university, so I have a lot of sympathy with what's going on here, and the money just doesn't materialize out of thin air. And so we have put on paper opportunities. I understand that, but the question becomes now is can your colleagues there at both Prairie View and Sam Houston really truly take advantage of them? I mean, I think we had the discussion earlier about the timing of this and having to go to the legislature. You're always 2 years behind, as we all know. Where are the resources coming from? I mean, I think that's a real concern. Jim, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, sir. First of all, about the U of H downtown losing $2 million if they pull out of the Mitzi, could someone back there tell me how many students U of H downtown has at the Mitzi now? 255. I'll guarantee you, if they're going to lose $2 million if they pull out of the Mitzi, we're going to lose $4 million if they open that campus in Tomball. So that's the first thing. Second thing is the Mitzi, in terms of, if I were the czar and I could say, well, we would take over the Mitzi in the Woodlands, of course that would be ideal, and I'd take it in a minute. But there's some problems involved. One of them is North Harris. North Harris. I mean, he's sitting right beside him. Yeah, he's a good friend, but he's sitting right. But they own the building. They own the building.
And we're open to that. We have had discussions with Jim and with Chancellor Matthews about that. We've done what we were expected to by our community. When I became chancellor almost 16 years ago, they said, when are you going to become a four-year institution? Because we've got a great reputation. We've got enough on our plate as an open admissions institution with our workforce development mission. But people still wanted that. And so we were able to convince 6 institutions to partner. But the key to that was not to duplicate it. It's now grown at a point where it makes sense, with Sam Houston having nearly 80% of the enrollment, to take it over. And we would be willing to explore that option. Our board said, yeah, take a look at it. So that can be on the table. And I think what Dr. Gouge was talking about, the problems inherent in a highly populated area, would say that area with its population growth would continue. I mean, one of the things you didn't see that the staff didn't put up was Montgomery County's growth. The Woodlands campus, Mitzi, is in Montgomery County and draws great from the Conroe Independent School District all the way up as far as Willis. So there's tremendous opportunity for, ranking 59 out of 60 is an embarrassment to the Houston area.
Dr. Matthews, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Well, I have to speak on behalf of my region. We're sitting here spending money that I don't have authorization to do. I've got 9 institutions, 70,000 students, 13,000 employees, and $1 billion budget, and I've got needs everywhere. And all of a sudden, we're talking about spending money that our board has never discussed. And I'm feeling very uncomfortable with this discussion. I mean, you folks can approve, but my board will decide. And we've got lots of people competing in our system for money. And this is not anything we plan to do.
Thank you. Dr. Ross?
Yes, I'd like to respond, I guess, to one aspect of what Chancellor Gouge was saying. And I was sitting here thinking, I just wish that I were in the position to make the same kind of argument as Chancellor Gouge, in the sense that I think all of us instinctively like the concept of competition, that to speak against competition, and indeed in this entire argument, I've often been put in the position of where someone could perceive I'm opposed to access because I'm speaking on behalf of my own institution or competition, but my best response back then brings up something that in many ways we would like to get beyond, and that is our past. But our past keeps entering into the present, and I guess it's for you individuals to weigh those things, to weigh all of the comments that have been made about the need that is there, that's very real, yet against an institution that once was denied the very things. I went on the website of the University of Houston to just see what they offer. They have a tremendous range of courses and programs and so forth.
You then look at when they receive the bulk of their PhD programs, their master's programs, and so forth. It makes me seem negative to say it was during the same time that Prairie View was a university, but the state of Texas chose not to give those programs to Prairie View, and the only reason has to be race. I found it very compelling that one of the representatives mentioned growing up in an area and having to ride the bus to classes. I could make the same thing. She goes on and on about the need in her area for schools, but she then also says, but the people are not going to go to Prairie View. The question then begs, why won't they go to Prairie View? In that sense, that then is the challenge that you face. How do you level these things? Chancellor Gouge is absolutely correct when he talks about what he can do, and in an open market, he will be able to get more than his share. I truly don't know what will be the impact on Prairie View. I have said that your decision to go forward could be detrimental to Prairie View. Let's say I'm wrong on that, then that's okay. But suppose you don't believe that, and it does prove to hurt this institution yet again. And there we go. But again, that is the challenge. But I'm talking about rectifying the past, yet the young people of today were born in a time that they have nothing in principle to do with the problem. So therein is the dilemma that I believe we face.
Dr. Wright, I mean, we're obviously struggling with those issues and other. Our problem is, unlike in the business world, when we were to make decisions like this, and you go get your capital, we can spend the money. This board doesn't spend any money. You know, we can talk about what we want to do. We can talk about public education policy and what we'd like to see, but as you well know, that decision is made, you know, downtown. So, in helping us, you know, try to get to making what we hope is the very best decision this board can make. You know, we need to get into these different arguments.
And I guess in some ways,
Curtis?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to follow up on some of Neil's comments, but first, can we all take a deep breath? And, you know, I heard some comments today, and I just want to reflect on some of them. If we approve this today, it's not bad behavior. If we deny it, it's not bad behavior. If we table this, it's not bad behavior. Where's the problem? The problem is not Sam Houston, it's not Prairie View. It certainly provides access to higher education, closing the gaps. And when you look at the cost versus the replacement, it's a tremendous opportunity. My concern is the speed in which we're debating this issue. And I think that the staff has done a great job. I think there needs to be a little bit more tweaking on some of the items that we discussed. There still needs to be some clarifications. And I think if we just table this to our board meeting, which is in about 3 weeks, I think we can come to total closure on this issue. Those are my comments.
Well, I think I've been to this meeting about 20 times in my life. We have, as I see this, and you know my perspective is always the business side, a very reasonable, good proposal before the board. And I got to that conclusion by reading all the papers and so forth we've gone through here lately, because to me it suggested that we were going to take care of more people faster in an area of great need. And we were going to be able to do it in a way of excellent economics, which is maybe a one-time deal. That proposal has been brought to us, and I believe that it would be looked upon favorably by the board, but that's only my opinion. But it seems to me that this is like a deal that's being made in the contract. The details of the contract have not been sufficiently negotiated. And we've heard a lot about this, and I feel as we sit here that all of a sudden now the board has become the negotiators of the contract with all these issues about which school offers which
degree, and all the details that go into that. And it seems to me that we need to get past the business deal and have the staff and the management of the affected parties negotiate the final contract. Lord only knows, we've got general counsel here that we spent a lot of time talking about that last night on real contracts. But it takes that flavor as I sit here and listen to it. Because the opportunity is clearly there from my perspective. And the benefits are there to the kids in large numbers. It's hard to argue that point. But all these other issues that we're talking about here around the table seem to muddy the water from my perspective. And it needs to be more work done between the staff to get that sorted out, I think.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Adams.
Mr. Hinton?
Yeah.
Am I understanding what you would propose would be to approve the real estate, but table the programs?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
I'd like to agree, and I know he spoke very effectively about all the work that has been done so far, and the staff has done a great job. What would be the downside to putting this off until the next board meeting?
Well, I think the University of Houston will have to speak to that from the real estate standpoint. In terms of them meeting the requisites of the coordinating board and 4 out of 4 standards, there would be nothing wrong with the board moving forward to approve that, in my opinion, from my perspective as the chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee. And if you table the programs to the October meeting, we're not under any restraint time-wise in terms of those programs. The question is what is it ultimately going to look like? Because they're somewhat interrelated. Because if you give as proposed an option to Prairie View and to Texas State a time frame to have programs, plan and implement programs on this campus, I'm saying Houston, I'm sorry, and then if they've got to have some vehicle, either lease or purchase, to be present on the campus. So they're somewhat tied together.
George, want to respond to that? From my perspective, if you do the real estate deal and then we become very onerous in whatever action we take on the program side, it might certainly kill the U of H's ability to pay for this thing.
I guess my question was, if we table the entire decision until the board meeting, what's the downside from the real estate?
Right. Well, the downside from the U of H's argument, which they can certainly speak to on their own, but they have told us, is that they lose the real estate deal. That's the short answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to respond to Mr. Hinton's question. I agree with you in that we are dealing with the details of the programs offered. But I think that is our responsibility to make sure that when our staff made the recommendation for approval, that these programs that are offered give the University of Houston the ability to have a framework by which to deal with how that will work with other universities. That's the way I see it. It's my understanding, you all know that I'm the Houstonian here, but my vote and my support is not about the University of Houston at all, nor is it about Houston, Texas at all. It's about the students that have access to this campus and other campuses throughout the state. And to me, to jeopardize the University of Houston from providing access in a region that has been identified as the most in need for more facilities to serve more students would be detrimental to the mission of our board. Our overarching mission is closing the gaps and creating a college-going culture. When you look at the demographics of the students in the 4 or 5 surrounding districts, 50 and 60% of them are college-going. That is higher than the Houston area itself. That Northwest corridor is higher in percentage of college-going students. So there are more than enough students to reach those, to be able to attend those campuses. and have access. And I think that to deny this recommendation today and to table it will absolutely kill the real estate deal for U of H. It'll go away, somebody else will buy the property, and we will be 6,000 to 10,000 students fewer in access in the state of Texas. That's what's going to happen. So, I urge us all to look at it from that perspective, from the perspective of our own mission of closing the gaps.
I don't think we're poles apart on this thing. I think we're pretty much in lockstep. All I'm saying is that there are a lot of details that have to be worked out here, and I haven't heard any comments here from any of the people that have made addresses that have been disingenuous. They've been honest and straightforward, and I think that the feedback from the board has been the same way. That we really got to decide what the devil is always in the detail. And we could sit here till this time tomorrow and still be going back and forth. For instance, I find it difficult to understand, and I'm sure that somebody can explain why I'm wrong very quickly, but why do we care whether it's 4 years or 5 years? That's like giving the sleeves out of our vest to me. And you've got to give people time to do all the things that have to be done. And I would rather err on the side of leniency than to cut it too short, and then we have to come back to have another board meeting and big discussions again about, are we going to enforce the 4-year limit, or are we not going to enforce the 4-year limit?
Well, those are the kinds of things I think that the staff recommendation addresses, and that the universities can work out among themselves. But to defer this or to table this until the October board meeting would be giving the University of Houston that plans to open in January another month less time to try to hire their staff and expand their campus and get the facility ready. I mean, I think that what we would be doing is crippling their efforts.
Well, that's a matter of opinion, and yours is just different than mine, and I just think that these people will get together and work these details out, because I don't see anything here as a deal killer. Because the basic deal is to take care of these kids that don't have the opportunity today, and I'm four square behind that deal. We need to do more faster in that regard everywhere. And I can't believe that we can't, between the staff, work that out in a matter of days. It's intense negotiation. Now, maybe we can't, but I don't think we're going to resolve it today or tomorrow, because we keep going around the table with the same dialogue. So something's got to give. And I say the give is in vote on the deal, do the contract, and bring us back to it. And then we preside over it. Commissioner?
Well, let me respond to some of the comments. These recommendations are intended to be a framework for negotiation of the details. These recommendations were developed after a lot of consultation with the parties involved, and these recommendations are intended to provide a kind of a foundation to fill in some of the specifics that you referred to. We try to be attentive to all of the institution's primary concerns. For example, making sure that we eliminated the possibility of offering lower division courses was responsive to the concerns of the community colleges in the area. Protecting the Prairie View's programs was intended to be responsive to its mission and to the spirit of the Office of Civil Rights documents and the priority plan. The concern about residential students at Sam Houston State is also implicit in the prohibition to offer lower division courses. We thought that this was, based on what we had heard from the three parties, that this represented a foundation to fill in the details and go forward. I can't speak for the University of Houston. I don't know what Chancellor Gouge would say, but if I were in his position, I wouldn't want to proceed forward with this real estate deal not knowing what any of the parameters, what any of the guidelines, what any of the conditions might be. And this was intended to provide a basis for negotiation and to address some basic concerns. For example, if you look at item 8, that these institutions would collaborate to develop a meaningful partnership with local school districts and community colleges to enhance the P16 pipeline. That was put in there specifically to address the issue of the potential short-term loss of enrollments. How do you address that issue? You work together to improve college readiness and to improve college-going rates. So I think that we try to provide a broad enough framework and a framework with enough flexibility to enable further discussion. We thought that without attaching some conditions, that there would be so much vagueness, there would be so many unanswered questions that this proposal would not go forward.
Well, I understand that you've laid out a framework, but we're still working on the details here today. So, on the basis of what we have, could we really vote to go forward on this deal? I mean, we can, obviously. But
for myself, I only have a couple of more questions to be good to go. I don't know, how about y'all? Are we kind of down to the short hairs here? I am. Okay. Can I ask those questions so we can kind of wrap this up?
You can, but let me call on Mr. Foster first.
I have just a couple of comments, and I'll be brief. But first of all, Neil mentioned the charge that we have in closing the gaps and the fact that we have to figure out a way to educate 650,000 more students by 2015. And I remember when Dr. Murdoch gave us those figures, I went home, I couldn't sleep that night. I'm just trying to imagine how we could possibly figure out a way to add that much volume in our education systems. And so I think this is an opportunity that we need to be very careful not to squander. That being said, we have to be fair to everybody, and I recognize that. This whole turf battle thing, to me, frankly, is a little bit unsavory and frustrating, because to me, everybody in this room has a responsibility to try to figure out how to educate children. And if somebody's little turf is affected, I don't care, frankly. I want to figure out a way to close the gaps. And so I just wanted to say that it's frustrating to me. A couple of questions. One is, will the real estate deal really go away if we wait until our October meeting? I mean, is there like a hard deadline in some contract that expires?
We were told that the real estate deal would go away September 1st. And we assumed that, and that's what we had shared. We were told after the meeting that because you set a date rather quickly for this, that in fact they would certainly wait on us. And so I don't know whether the real estate deal goes away or not. I was just going to mention the statement. The thing that concerns us from the University of Houston perspective, and I realize these are details, but when you allow programs and for decisions to be deferred for 4 years or 5 years or some length of time, every first of the month I got to pay the rent while other people are deciding whether or not they may or may not, as opposed to either leasing that space or making firm commitments on part of that space to other parties. And so we're the guilty party in trying to say, let's hurry up and make up our mind. We want to make it available. We want to make it accessible. But when you drag out potentials for lease or purchase over a long period of time, it makes us nervous at the university.
Paul, let me, the one thing that we do have control over, because I think this will help answer it, the question is not knowing where this discussion would go or ultimately end up today. There is a placeholder item on our agenda in October.
That was my next question.
Is that going to be your next question? Okay, well, that answers your question.
Okay. And I'm not suggesting we table. I just want to know facts.
No, I know that, and that's right, and that's why I wanted to make sure you understood that in the question that you asked.
Okay. The other question I have just has to do with I don't quite understand this whole right of first refusal process, and I want to, again, I think everything needs to be fair and on the table, and it seems to me, the way I read it, Prairie View has a right of first refusal. Does Sam Houston not have that? That's only Prairie View. Is that right? And during that time, neither Prairie View nor U of H can offer programs that are on this list.
Sam Houston or U of H.
Sam Houston.
Sorry, I don't even know what I said, but the other two. Is that right? Everything's kind of put on hold while they decide over the next 6 years whether or not they're going to...
For these specific programs. They have to decide in 3 years. 3 years. If
we amend it.
Amended to what
Right now,
I would like to see.
But that is how it works, right?
Yes.
Only then.
3 years. Yes.
The programs Prairie View, the first right of refusal on purchase and lease is both institutions, Sam Houston State and Prairie View. Okay.
All right.
Brenda Huntington is here representing the seller. Do you think that it would be appropriate to ask her if this deal's going to go away if we table it for yet another month?
No. 3 weeks. Well, I mean, that's between the U of H and unless somebody wants to hear it.
Well, it's a yes or no answer.
Well, it may not be a yes or no answer. I mean, I think some of the discussion at the board level last time is they thought it was a yes or no answer, and it wasn't. So.
Okay.
Dr. Phillips?
Mr. Chairman, on the question of putting this off till October, I really think that the details are pretty much worked out. To me, it's these big questions of crystal ball, what's going to happen in the future. And I can't even imagine any more arguments that are going to come up that would make a difference in a month.
Well, to that point, I'd like to ask if the 31 questions that were proposed at the September 11th meeting were not answered, and are those pertinent questions for the board to have the answers to make our deliberations better?
We haven't seen those questions.
You didn't ask for them, sir. In my presentation, I specifically said I have here a long list of questions. We did not get to those questions. I assumed since our meeting ended without any resolution, you would follow up with us and that we would then go forward in that regard.
Before we get into that, let me make sure the board understands something here. Whatever action we take today, the only thing that we cannot change is the real estate part of this. Okay, remember that. Everything else that we're dealing with are our rules. Okay. A lot of this will not be determined for a few years. In fact, some of the decisions as it relates to the Northwest Harris County higher education community will be made not by this board, it'll be made by future boards. I think we need to keep that in mind as well. So we're not going to solve every problem that there is to solve today. That is not going to happen. So I think that we need to keep that in context as well. There'll be several things for us to deal with as time goes on. But we're not going to solve all the issues today.
Bob, can I comment on that? I haven't heard a single comment from a board member that would lead me to believe that we wouldn't want to move forward with purchasing this land or have U of H move forward with purchasing this land. And I agree with you. There are a lot of details to work out, but I don't think any of them rise to the level of a deal killer. And so I know there's a motion on the table, but the direction I'd like to see us go is to at least give them authority to go ahead and do that, and then maybe give us a little time to breathe and think about some of these other details between now and the board meeting.
Chairman, could I speak against that just briefly? Is that
yes, sir. And pretty soon here we're going to vote.
Right.
Real soon.
It's probably not much comfort to the institutions, but it is a comfort to me that what you just said is that there's nothing we've ever done that we couldn't change except the real estate deal. And I am comforted by the fact that we can move forward. And then if we have made an error, this board is certainly not shy enough not to address it.
Okay. All right.
That's exactly right.
Well, we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second.
There was an amendment.
We have talked about, I'm getting right to you, Mr. Adams. we have talked about some amendments to that, and what I would like to do is call on Mr. Adams to talk about those amendments and see if they are acceptable to the author of the motion. Mr. Adams?
I would move to amend Lori's motion to amend as follows. Paragraph 2, I would change that to a 3-year option and a 3-year opportunity to implement. Paragraph 4, I would change that 1-year option to 6-year option. And then I would amend paragraphs 5 and 6 to include upper level reference prior to the word programs. And then I would amend paragraph 7 where it says if Prairie View A&M University or Sam Houston State University is leasing, I would put or purchases space at the Northwest campus. And those would be my proposed amendments. Okay, I'd also need to change in paragraph 2 to August 15th of 2012. That's my motion to amend the motion, Cindy.
I'm not.
Or that's.
Well, no. I understand that. My question is parliamentary procedure. Do we need a second to the amendment?
If we do, I do.
Okay. We do.
If we don't, I don't.
Okay. There is a second. Are those amendments acceptable to the author and to the second?
Who seconded the motion? No, Lynn did.
Yeah. Okay. The original motion was made by Laurie Bricker and seconded by Lynn Phillips. The amendments, obviously, to the record were made by Neil Adams and seconded by Lorraine Perryman. Is there any further discussion?
I do have one question. I really don't know if this applies or not, so pardon that. The question regarding support for OCR funding to continue for Prairie View A&M, is that taken at another meeting? Is it addressed at another time? Does this board even respond or have...
Mr. Adams, I know you're itching to speak to me.
Well, I'm not necessarily. I'll be happy to. We don't have any authority over that funding. That is a legislative issue, period. And the only funding we have authority over is a recommendation through funding formulas, and we've done that already.
So the board does not take a position of support for or against, or just does not speak at all to this issue.
Well, it's certainly not in this motion or the amendment to that. We have not taken that.
But her question, though, is that even if we adopt this motion, would we have authority under this current posted agenda to, again, we don't have authority over it. It would be strictly making a statement, a position of this board, as opposed to it having any authority. But and we've done that in the past, particularly when I recall the incident on research dollars. We didn't have any authority over research dollars. We had the opportunity to encourage the legislature to fund additional research. We've done that. I guess the question, Council, would be under this agenda is could we address that after this motion is adopted under the current agenda?
Well, Mr. Adams or Ms. Mendoza, one of the things that I've heard the commissioner speak to over and over and over again was about strengthening all of our institutions of higher learning, certainly including Prairie View. I can't imagine if we could take it up that we wouldn't be supportive of something like that.
I, for one, certainly am.
To formalize that, if that's an option.
Do you believe under this agenda, the posted agenda, we can at least make that statement? You do? Okay.
I would agree.
Okay. All right.
So we would do that separately from this motion, following this, motion of support for that. Okay. But not included in this.
Is that your recommendation that we handle it separately?
Yes.
But it can be handled as part of the motion as well. Yeah, let's handle it.
Carry a little more impact.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion and the amendment as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Opposed. Where's our recording secretary? Okay. Everybody present voting aye except one, Mr. Ransom. Okay. The motion carries. Now, Ms. Mendoza, would you have a motion that you would like to offer?
Yes, I move that this board states that we are in support of the OCR Texas Priority Plan. The funds be continued at above our current level in support of that plan.
And I second that motion.
Okay. There's a motion. Did everybody hear that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be sure what we're voting on is not necessarily support of the plan, because the plan may change. In fact, I think it expires, Counselor,
Help me say it right
at
now.
the end of the year. But I think what we're supporting is at least equal to or greater funding for the OCR plan.
Guys, we're just kind of following what was in this communication.
I tried to say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I said. And I second what
We have a motion on the floor and a second by Lorraine Perryman. Is there any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
If I could just make one comment to the staff. You know, we've had a couple of comments from the leadership of these institutions, namely Sam Houston and Prairie View, that sometimes they did not feel that their concerns were responded to or addressed. I want to make sure that we really go out of our way to respond in a timely fashion and to make sure that we do ask for what their concerns are and respond to those. So if, Dr. Wright, if you could get your list of concerns to the staff in writing so that they have an opportunity to respond to those, we would greatly appreciate that, and I know they would appreciate the opportunity to do so, because we certainly want everyone that is involved in this, and, you know, the same thing for Sam Houston State, that whatever your concerns are, this continues to be a work in progress, and we want to clearly respond to and honor all of your concerns as we continue to hammer out this agreement, and I know that the staff's heart is in exactly that same place.
Along those lines, is it asking too much for us to have what OCR says when we meet again?
Absolutely.
That is asking too much?
No, it's not.
No, it's not asking too much.
Whatever response we get, we'll provide you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. There are a couple of other things I want to mention here. First of all, any of the requests that Ms. Perryman had mentioned, please get those to the Commissioner. The other is, for the record, we did receive a letter from Senator Royce West dated yesterday to all of us as board members. I want to make sure that that is made part of the record. What I would say to our friends at the University of Houston, I think you have a special responsibility in this regard to make this work. And when I say that, I'm not only speaking to you as an institution, but to all your fellow institutions out there. I hope you'll please take that to heart. Okay. We are now 5 or 6 hours late. I told Tim Dytloff he'd be home by midnight. What I would like to do is, obviously, we will break to go into executive session. And if you all will bear with me a minute, I'll have to read that. Bear with me a second. We're going to go into a closed meeting to deliberate the following matters. 1, to consult with the Commissioner regarding personnel matters pursuant to Section 551.074 Texas Government Code. And 2, consultation with its attorney regarding administration of the Texas College Student Loan Bonds pursuant to Section 5.071 Texas Government Code. Okay, that's for the record. Okay. We are now Out of closed meeting, our closed meeting is adjourned, and the meeting again is in open session. The time is 2:30. Or what, that says 2:33. 2:33.
Different time zone from in there.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of things that I want to mention real quick that I was handed in addition to Senator West's letter that he wanted to make sure was on the record. We have received a letter from Representative Stefana Thompson that I want to place on the record as well about the U of H issue, and also from Senator Mario Gallegos as well. As a record of that, Commissioner, let me both of those in case they're not copies. We have, well, is everybody here? Curtis left, I know that. And I don't know Whit here. Okay. What I would like to do at this time is recognize our colleague, Laurie Bricker. Laurie?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's come to my attention after our vote that the University of Houston has expressed to various members of our board and the commissioner that while our intention, and I'm going to try and say this the way I think that they're saying it, while our intention to approve this campus, both the facility and the programs, our intention was that we approved it because of the caveat or the amendments to the motion that they feel like they will not be able to move forward. That, and coupled with the fact of the motion for OCR. Now, I tried to write down, I'm going to try and tell you as I understand it, that the 6 years that we changed on number 2 of agenda item 3B, Lynn, I took yours, on number 2 of agenda item 3B, that we now are allowed for 6 years, up to 6 years, for programs to be approved. It's my understanding, and again, I'm trying to interpret what they said to me, it's my understanding that they feel that they will have to not be able to lease the space, not be able to offer the programs, but they have the space and they're paying for the space, and therefore they will not be able to make this work. They also said that, let's see, U of H is currently limited to 40 programs, and Sam Houston and Prairie View have 6 years to decide whatever else they want to offer. So this space is just there. No one's going to lease it. They're not able to lease it until or unless Prairie View or Sam Houston decide to, in addition to the programs. Secondly, they said that the OCR letter, if they have to wait for the OCR clarification or interpretation to come back, that there is precedence that in Tennessee that there's been a purchase of a building and then the OCR letter comes back and says against it and they lost the building.
Mr. Chairman, we're not seeking OCR approval if we approve it.
That's what my interpretation of Elaine's
the only motion that was made
that we would comply.
The only that was the question I asked to make clear that we weren't approving OCR's plan. We were approving going forward for the legislature to fund the OCR plan.
Support, that's it.
All we're doing is making a recommendation.
All we do, we have no authority over that. We're not seeking an opinion for OCR. We have no authority over that.
No.
Okay, my question is, why did they not ask these questions? They were sitting right at that table.
That's what I thought, and I looked to them because I really wanted their input.
Well,
I felt like we needed it.
Lorraine, you'll recall that I made the comment that if I were Chancellor Gouge, I wouldn't accept the amended terms of the extension of the time to 6 years, because that essentially puts a straitjacket on the University of Houston.
He also, Raymond, he told me he would not accept the 2 and 2. Had her motion been approved as made, he would not have accepted that.
So it wasn't a change from 2 to 3.
It wasn't a 3-3, it was a 2-2. He said 1 year is all we can live with. If you only have 1 year, then we might as well go to total market.
So the motion as as stated as the staff recommendation, which was my motion,
Correct.
he would have approved that.
He told me he could live
Yes.
with the original recommendation.
Right, the original 1 year?
No, what you have before you.
This one.
Okay, see, I didn't understand him
It's
say
2 years plus
Right. So,
the beginning of the second academic year, which is essentially 3 years plus 3 months.
exactly. So if the clarification of this OCR that has nothing whatsoever to do with either motion, if
It has nothing to do with them.
Right.
They don't have a dog in this
And
fight.
if the only issue, and I'm just trying to interpret it, if the only issue is the 6 years, then if the chair would agree, I would offer to revisit that particular motion,
motion to reconsider.
or motion to reconsider.
Yeah, what you would do is you'd offer that
then
the
I'll-
motion be reconsidered.
Okay, then I move to reconsider the original motion.
Okay?
The motion is passed.
Excuse me, what?
You're asking a motion to reconsider the motion that's passed.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Lynn Phillips. Okay.
Now what? There's debate over here about the process.
Counselor?
A motion to reconsider will work. It must be made by a member who voted with the prevailing side. It can be seconded by anybody.
Right.
It needs to be brought, in a typical one-day meeting such as this, it needs to be brought up in today's meeting. And the motion, it's in order.
Okay.
So,
Did everybody hear what Bill said?
And the motion to reconsider is if it's adopted, then we go back to the original motion.
exactly, which we
If it's
can't
not
amend.
adopted, then the original motion
That's
stands.
correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the table.
There is a motion by a member of the board who is on the prevailing side of this issue to reconsider the motion as passed.
That's correct.
Okay, that motion to reconsider was seconded by Lynn Phillips. Okay, it is now back on the floor for discussion.
So tell me what we're doing here exactly.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
The original motion's not back on the floor unless this motion passes.
Right.
Yeah, the motion to reconsider, I'm sorry. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to reconsider. Okay.
We have to vote on it.
Is that a discussionable item or do you vote?
It's debatable.
It is debatable.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In more ways than one.
Okay. Is there any discussion
So the
on
vote
the motion to reconsider? Mr. Foster?
My understanding is the whole basis for the reason that we changed it from 2 years to 3 years. Because really the issue at hand is that right of first refusal period and their exercise period was to get them through 2 legislative sessions. Is that right? I mean, was that the
Well, it was basically give Prairie View, at least my reason I made the motion to amend was to give them an opportunity from a fairness standpoint to get through the process of legislative sessions and funding and the other things that you've got to do to start a program.
Well, but your reason for extending it to 3 years was to get them not only past this next legislative session, but to get them through one more. Right.
Because they've already done their LARs for this.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Clearly.
After the discussion.
Right. And what I'm hearing you of H say is if they have to wait a possible total of 6 years,
Could be.
that they can't make the deal work. That's what I'm
They have to
understanding.
exercise, the way the motion passed, they have to exercise their option within the first 3 years. Then they have 3 years to implement.
But are there some specifics somewhere? Is there some background material about like how much space they have to set aside for, or I mean, this is all pretty.
The parties had talked about a certain set of space at one time. U of H had offered the parties a certain set amount. Commissioner and staff talked to Bob and I about that. We didn't believe that should be something that should be in there. That's something that ought to be left to the parties to determine, whatever that might be down the road, and the institutions are.
So they could exercise their option by leasing one office, one room.
Sure. Yeah. Well, they're going to have to exercise it in relationship to delivering programs.
Paul, as I understand the general discussion, they were talking, the U of H was talking to both Prairie View and Sam Houston, the leasing space at 75% of the prevailing market.
Well, the rate, but how much space? I mean, the problem is, the way I hear Lori, is they're concerned about, they got to set aside all this real estate and just leave it empty
Right.
for a certain period of time. And how do they know how much to set aside? And how do they, is it half of the property? Is it 10%?
But yet they still have to make the total lease payment.
Well, they don't. That would be negotiated between the parties, obviously.
All these concern is, if this university wants to do this, and they want us to discuss this again, why aren't they here pleading their case?
Because
why would they leave it to a board member to do that?
Right. Now, they didn't know that we were going to even come back and discuss it. That's why.
We have a ballpark figure.
20,000.
Chuck, it was 20,000.
20,000.
Yeah, Paul, to answer your question, the staff's got a ballpark figure, so maybe we can come close to it.
It was 20,000 apiece.
Okay.
What, 20,000 square feet?
Yeah, U of H offered both of them 20,000 apiece.
Which is
Out of how many?
minimal.
160,000.
Yeah, 100 so.
That's a quarter.
That's 40,000 out of
Of E&G space, 200 and what, Susan?
230.
So, Paul, round numbers, we're talking 10%. Or less than 10%.
187,000
Well,
square feet of E&G space.
Each or total?
No, that's U of H total.
That's U of H.
No, but
You
the
have
20,000
parking.
The 20,000 was each.
each. Okay.
But that's what U of H had offered them. But this whole discussion comes back to, and a discussion that Chair and I have had, and with the Commissioner, is we don't need to be in the real estate business. I mean, if we're going to do that, take item 4 completely out of this thing. I have a problem on voting on anything now, Laurie, in all due respect, is that all the parties and the interested parties are gone.
No, I agree with you.
And I have a hard time supporting your motion, even though I may be empathetic to it. But
can this be reconsidered at the next board meeting?
it's on the agenda. It's on the agenda, but it's on the agenda.
We can't reconsider a motion to reconsider.
So you can make it a motion.
But
Introduce a new motion.
there will be a way to revisit.
So if some resolution were reached between now and then between the parties, at least there's some window for us to...
And Laurie, that may be the way to do it. I mean, we approved, if they want to go do their real estate deal, fine and dandy, and if they've got some resolution that they can come together on it, and we said this from day one, if the three institutions will get together and come forward with something that they can agree on, we encourage them to do that.
But that's certainly not going to happen because two of them don't want the deal to go.
They're not going to do that.
It will not happen.
It won't happen. I tend to agree with you, Lynn.
And so we've lost this opportunity, basically. Now, the only reason that I felt compelled to tell you is that I think it's our intent that we all walked away thinking that it was going to happen. And U of H is saying they can't do it.
Well, why didn't they say that? The man sat there at the table.
No, what I heard some of this, Laura, you had more detail than I did, but the little conversation I heard was that it did not make their cash flow analysis that they'd already done did not work with this extended time. And Raymond, that may be what you were referring to, that they could not economically justify purchase with this extended
because of 20,000 feet. I don't believe that.
I don't either.
Well, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second on the table to reconsider.
Raymond, what do you think?
Well, I don't think it was a space issue. I think it was tying up all those programs for 6 years.
Right. Right. It's still
We don't know because they're not here to tell us.
No.
This is like us assuming.
Well, I don't think it's like us assuming. I mean, we've heard everything over and over again on the negative side, and we've hardly ever given the positive side any time whatsoever at all. So I think we've let a tremendous opportunity pass us by. We could have asked U of H, like we bowed down to Sam Houston and Prairie View, we could have asked them how they felt about it before we voted on it.
Yeah, we should have.
I don't understand how they could just sit there and not, if they're going to walk out of the meeting and say, we're out of here, how they wouldn't have brought that up during.
Well, they brought it up.
Exactly.
They did their financial analysis. They brought it up. They've come to the table over and over and over again. I don't know when they stopped begging for us to.
Sometimes.
That was never said at this meeting to me, Lynn. What you just said. They told us that over and over. That was never said to me, and they sat at the table with the change in the motion from here, and they never voiced that to this board.
I don't mean at this meeting, but they sat with all the parties and tried to get something that could be agreed to over and over and over again. They've gone to President Gouge has gone to the other presidents. I think this is an incredibly favorable deal for Sam Houston and Prairie View. And it's just, I don't know.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we could spend hours redebating this, but we do have a motion and a second to reconsider. And unless there is something new to talk about here, I would certainly think that we ought to vote on that. Okay.
What is the ramification of voting for reconsideration? We have to make the decision on that motion right here, right now?
Yes. That's what our legal counsel advised.
If we don't pass the reconsideration, we still have an opportunity to reconsider it at the next board meeting because it's on the agenda.
Not to reconsider, but
that's a new motion.
But if we vote to reconsider, then if in fact we took out that one caveat of the 6 years back to the recommendation, then I think that would show intent. I'm just interpreting, I don't know. I think that would show our best interest and support for U of H, I think.
This motion does not change anything.
Because that was the proposal by staff. That was the proposal they walked in with.
I think it's patently unfair, though, to undo something. We have all the institutions that have gone by the wayside to come back and redo that. I'm sorry.
Absolutely agree.
And I have a real problem with supporting your motion. All due respect.
And we all voted for the motion except for Curtis. So what more do we show them that we support?
Commissioner?
If this might be a way to resolve this situation, if you decide to wait until the next meeting, I concur with Neil that it's inappropriate to do this when so many of the interested parties are gone. But if you directed me, I could contact the campuses and express some interest in re-examining this issue at the next board meeting. I could also communicate to them that you've directed the staff to try to see if we could, since we have a little more time to work out some of these questions that came up at the meeting today, I'd be happy to do that.
And to let the institutions know, institutions plural, all institutions know that it was the intent of the majority of this board to move forward with that property and programs. Am I right?
We voted that way.
Right.
We voted that way.
We have a vote on the record.
I know. So, if that's something that you feel like you can do and will do, then I'd be satisfied with that. I just felt compelled to tell you what they said. Okay? That's all.
Well, they should have spoken up for themselves.
Okay, I'm going to have to catch an airplane at some point.
No, at the end, they all sat there and had their opportunity to say
The question is called for.
Renegotiate this thing.
Which, thank goodness, is not debatable. All those in favor of the motion to reconsider, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Opposition has it. Okay. I do agree with the commissioner. Commissioner, I think you ought to talk to all parties concerned. We do have, as I mentioned in the very beginning, a placeholder on the next board meeting where we can talk about these or other issues. The last item on the agenda is agenda item under agency operations 5A, consideration of contracts for the purchase of materials and services through a vendor other than a state or local government entity for those materials and services greater than $100,000 and less than or equal to $750. We have in your packet 4 of those contracts. The first one is
a maintenance contract for the Bull mainframe for $457,081 based on a 12-month term. That contract includes a fixed fee of $242,641 for the first 6 months, and then continues on a month-to-month basis. Of course, the expected termination date of this contract is May 1, 2007. This obviously is continue on the mainframe until we can get switched over on our new software, hopefully within the next year. The second item is a staff augmentation contract with Todd Hiltz, a system analyst, for $142,500 to coordinate all the data on our conversion task. Third is a staff augmentation contract with Premium Vista Jagamundi, a developer analyst, for $102,000 to be a technical lead for the in-house development work required for our charter project. And then fourth is a staff augmentation contract with Eric Butterfield, a project lead, for $122,200 to work closely with charter during the gap analysis and to define and clarify the customization required. Mr. Adams?
Yeah, this is the ratification. These 4 contracts have been approved and moved forward because we had some issues and we were going to lose some real savings if we didn't get them done. Chair and I chose to exercise some discretion subject to your ratification, of course, and that's what this is the ratification of our actions authorizing the Commissioner to execute these 4 contracts.
Move to ratify.
There's a motion made by Ms. Mendoza, seconded by Paul Foster. Any further discussion?
Just one
Mr.
question,
Ryder?
Mr. Chairman. In our meeting this morning, I just want to make sure Joe's recognized this. We have a long discussion about the work that Charter is doing and making sure we don't get too far down that path because of what's being turned up by Deloitte and Touche right now, to make sure that we don't have them develop a system and then we come back after the fact, find out there's a lot of other applications that we have not addressed. So all I want to do is make sure that engaging these 3 people in the charter, that we don't get too far out in front of that Deloitte process, because that's part of what the recommendation is.
Point well made.
One other point too, Mr. Chairman, is we've asked Bill Franz and Jennifer Kaufman to revisit our contract policy, because obviously we need some leeway there, and we don't need to run into this problem in the future. So anytime you adopt policy, sometimes there's unintended consequences to you apply them. So we're going to come back with some revisions on that policy.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I want to thank everybody for their hard work and long day. I know this has been a little bit trying and extra during the quarter, but I know on behalf of Raymond and staff and me and myself, we really appreciate your effort. We'll see you in October.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I'm out of order, but I think if we're going to talk about this at our next meeting, that we ought to have a report about what we've been advised and what our view of these OCR issues are. I'm just tired of this being thrown up. I don't even know if everything in here is required by the priority plan. You know, and they talk about priority plans that are out of date. I just like to know exactly what that is.
We've asked Bill we can ask Bill to follow up his opinion to the chair and vice chair and commissioner in writing. And
that'd be great.
I think what Bob said in his opening remarks today was consistent. In fact, that statement was approved by Bill Franz and Bill Bednar.
Right.
That we are in compliance, and what we were proposing was in compliance with the 2000 priority.
But that doesn't seem to be accepted. I think it needs to be in the record.
Even if we put it in gold plate, it won't be accepted.
I still think we ought to put it in the record.
Lynn, I agree with you. The other thing that might be helpful after all this is the board has signaled what their wishes are here. I'm hopeful maybe that will get the other parties that did not want to engage in this process maybe understanding that it is going to move forward. Even though I would like not to spend any time on this between now and October, I assure you I'm going to. Hopefully we'll have more collaboration. But your points are well taken, and we will get with Bill.
And Bob, I just want to thank you and Neil for your leadership on this, because with all the calls that I got, I directed them all to you guys and to Raymond. I did because I felt like, yeah, I'm from Houston, but it needs to go through you all. And I know that you had a whole lot of calls and phones, emails and letters and all. I want to thank you both for your leadership.
Thank you.
No matter what happens.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Joe Henry, seconded by Lorraine Perryman. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.